Tonight, an invisible woman will disrupt a perfect assassination plot and become the next target. Mara Vance never imagined a small piece of paper could destroy her world. But when she saw what others overlooked, the diners in disguise, the guns hidden behind smiles, she had no choice. 7 words on the crumpled paper. You're being hunted. Leave now. Now both the Mafia and the federal government want her dead. Follow the story to the end, like and comment the city you're viewing so I know how far this story has come. The thing about being invisible is that you see everything. Mara Vance learned that truth the hard way, tucked behind the swinging kitchen doors of Vesper House every Friday night for 3 years. She wasn't supposed to notice the slight shift in a regular's gaze, the way a hand lingered too long on a wine glass, or how certain customers never actually ate their food. But she did. She always did. Tonight felt wrong before the first reservation even checked in. The air in Vesper House carried a particular tension, something Mara had felt only twice before, both times ending with police tape and hushed conversations among the staff. The restaurant occupied the ground floor of a converted industrial building in the warehouse district, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place where the wealthy pretended to slum it over $40 pasta. Mara moved through the dining room like a ghost in black slacks and a crisp white shirt, refilling water glasses no one touched, clearing plates still half full of seared scallops and truffle risotto. She'd been a waitress here since dropping out of community college to pay her brother's medical bills. Danny was 12 then, fighting leukemia in a hospital bed while Mara fought traffic to make double shifts. 5 years later, he was in remission and she was still here, still invisible, still paying off debt that multiplied like a virus. Table 9 just seated, Marco said, brushing past her with a tray of champagne flutes. He was the senior server, the kind of guy who knew everyone's drink order and no one's real problems. VIP reservation, Adrian Moreau. Mara's hand stilled on the water pitcher. Everyone knew that name. You didn't live in this city without hearing whispers about Adrian Moreau, the philanthropist who donated to children's hospitals, the businessman whose shipping company operated on every major port, the man who somehow never got indicted despite 3 federal investigations. Mara had served him twice before. He tipped well, spoke softly, and his eyes were the coldest thing she'd ever seen. Who's with him? She asked. His fiancée, Celeste Armand. Engagement party or something. Marco shrugged. We're comping their wine, manager's orders. Mara glanced toward table 9. Adrian sat with his back to the exposed brick wall. Always the wall, never the window, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. Across from him sat a woman who looked like she'd been assembled by a committee of jealous angels. Celeste Armand. Auburn hair cascading over bare shoulders, a smile that could sell diamonds or poison with equal success. She laughed at something Adrian said, her hand resting on his across the white tablecloth. Everything about the scene looked perfect. Engagement party, happy couple, celebration. Mara's instincts screamed otherwise. She moved closer, pretending to check the adjacent table's water glasses. That's when she noticed them. The other diners scattered throughout the room like chess pieces. A man in a navy blazer sat alone near the kitchen doors, his attention on his phone, but his posture too rigid, too ready. 2 women at the bar hadn't touched their martinis in 20 minutes. Another man by the window kept adjusting his collar, the movement too frequent, too nervous. Mara had waited tables long enough to know the difference between customers and actors. Her pulse kicked up. She retreated toward the kitchen, her mind cataloging details. The security cameras had been repositioned yesterday. She'd watched the technician adjust them herself, though she hadn't thought much of it at the time. The usual Friday night jazz trio had been replaced by a solo pianist, quieter, less intrusive. And the back exit, the one staff used for smoke breaks, had been blocked off for maintenance since noon. Someone was boxing Adrian Moreau in. You good? Marco appeared beside her, frowning. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. The lie came automatically. Just tired. She wasn't tired. She was terrified, though she couldn't have explained why. It wasn't her business if Adrian Moreau walked into a trap. The man was probably guilty of half the crimes they whispered about. He'd earned whatever was coming. But something Danny said once echoed in her head. You always notice things, Mar. You just pretend you don't. She pretended a lot. Pretended not to notice when the manager skimmed tips. Pretended not to see when the line cook showed up high. Pretended she didn't hear her neighbors fighting through paper-thin walls every weekend. Pretending was survival. Noticing was suicide. Mara grabbed a tray and headed back to the floor. Table 9 needed water refills. She'd do her job, collect her tips, go home. Simple. Except nothing about tonight was simple. As she approached, Adrian was speaking quietly to Celeste, his voice a low rumble Mara couldn't quite catch. Celeste's smile never wavered, but there was something glacial underneath it, something that made Mara's skin crawl. She'd seen that expression before, on her stepfather's face, right before he'd hit her mother, the calm before detonation. "Water?" Mara asked, her voice steady despite the hammering in her chest. Adrian glanced up. His eyes were dark gray, the color of an ocean before a storm. "Please." She poured slowly, buying time she didn't know what to do with. Celeste was talking now, something about their honeymoon in Santorini, her voice bright and artificial as candy flavoring. Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked resigned, like a man accepting a verdict he'd already guessed. Mara moved to his glass, and that's when Celeste's hand shifted, just slightly, to reveal the edge of something metallic tucked beneath the tablecloth near her lap. A gun. Mara's breath caught. She nearly dropped the pitcher. "Thank you," Adrian said, his gaze fixed on Celeste, oblivious. Mara stepped back, her heart slamming against her ribs. She looked toward the kitchen doors. The man in the navy blazer was watching table 9 now, his phone forgotten. The women at the bar had their hands in their purses. The pianist was playing something slow and mournful, like a requiem. This was it. This was the trap snapping shut. Mara didn't know what Celeste Armand was, but she knew what was about to happen. Adrian Moreau was going to die in this restaurant, surrounded by witnesses who were probably federal agents or rival syndicate soldiers, and it would look like justice, or maybe just another mob execution. Either way, he wouldn't walk out alive. She should leave it alone. Call in sick, slip out the back, pretend she'd never seen anything. But 7 days ago, Mara had been refilling wine glasses near the restrooms when she'd overheard Celeste on her phone, tucked into the dim hallway by the coat check. The conversation had been brief, brutal. "He trusts me completely. Friday night, Vesper House. It's already arranged. By midnight, Adrian Moreau will be dead, and my father's empire will swallow what's left of his." Mara had frozen behind a potted fern, holding a wine bottle like a weapon. Celeste had laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and ended the call. At the time, Mara told herself it was none of her business. Criminals killing criminals. The world kept spinning. But now, watching Adrian's calm face, his complete trust in the woman about to destroy him, something cracked inside her. She thought about Danny, about trust, about the people who pretended to care while planning your ruin. Before she could talk herself out of it, Mara grabbed a napkin from her apron and scribbled 7 words with the pen she used for taking orders. "You're being hunted. Leave now. M." Her hands shook so hard she could barely fold the napkin. This was insane. This was suicidal. Adrian Moreau didn't need saving from some waitress. He probably had a dozen bodyguards outside. He probably knew exactly what he was walking into. But Celeste's gun was still hidden under that tablecloth, and the agents, if that's what they were closing in like wolves. Mara walked back to table 9. "Excuse me, sir, you have a phone call at the host stand." Adrian frowned slightly. "I didn't give this number. They said it was urgent." Mara set the folded napkin beside his water glass, her fingers trembling. "About your shipment." That last word was a gamble. She'd heard enough whispered conversations to know Adrian's business involved shipments, legal or otherwise. His eyes flicked to the napkin. He didn't touch it, but something in his expression shifted. Celeste was talking about wedding flowers, oblivious, her hand still resting near the concealed weapon. Mara walked away before her nerve failed completely. Her legs felt like water. She made it 3 steps before she heard Adrian's voice, still calm. "Celeste, darling, I need to take this call. I'll be right back." "Now?" Celeste's voice sharpened. "Adrian, we're in the middle of 2 minutes." Mara didn't look back. She headed toward the kitchen, every instinct screaming at her to run. Behind her, she heard the scrape of Adrian's chair, the rustle of movement. The man in the navy blazer stood up. The women at the bar turned. Everything accelerated. Mara pushed through the kitchen doors just as someone shouted, "Federal agents! Nobody move!" Chaos erupted. Glass shattered. Chairs overturned. Screams cut through the piano music like knives. Mara pressed herself against the wall, gasping. Marco stumbled past her, eyes wide. "What the hell?" "Get down!" someone roared. Gunfire exploded. 3 sharp cracks that turned the restaurant into a war zone. Mara dropped to the floor, arms over her head, ears ringing. Through the chaos, she heard Celeste screaming, playing the terrified victim with Oscar-worthy conviction. More gunfire. Return fire. The kitchen's back exit, the one that was supposed to be blocked, slammed open. "Move!" A hand grabbed Mara's arm, hauling her up. She looked into Adrian Moreau's storm-gray eyes. Blood streaked his temple. His suit jacket was torn. "We need to go, now." I can't." Mara's voice failed. Her brain couldn't process this. She was a waitress. She wasn't supposed to be here. Adrian didn't wait for comprehension. He dragged her through the kitchen, past the walk-in freezer toward the back service corridor. Behind them, voices shouted commands. Boots pounded tile. "She's the witness. Don't let her leave." Witness? Mara's mind reeled. She'd slipped him a note. She hadn't witnessed anything. She didn't know anything. Adrian kicked open the service exit. Cold night air hit Mara's face. They were in an alley, dumpsters and loading docks, creating a maze of shadows. Adrian pulled her left toward a sleek black car idling 30 feet away. "Wait." Mara tried to pull free. The first bullet took out a window above her head. The second hit the dumpster beside them with a metallic clang. Adrian shoved her forward. "Run or die. Choose fast." Mara ran. Her sensible work shoes slapped pavement. Her lungs burned. Behind her, the gunfire continued. Not the controlled bursts of professionals, but something wilder, more desperate. Someone was screaming. It might have been her. The black car's door swung open. Adrian practically threw her inside, diving in after her. The driver, a man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, floored the accelerator before the door even closed. Mara slammed against the leather seat, gasping. The car screeched around a corner, tires shrieking. Another bullet punched through the rear window, spraying safety glass across the interior. "Down!" Adrian pressed her head below the window line, his body shielding hers. The car swerved violently. Mara's stomach lurched. She heard more gunfire, distance creating a merciful buffer. Then they were on a main road, merging with traffic, the chaos receding into background noise. Adrian slowly released her. "You hurt?" Mara couldn't speak. She was shaking so hard her teeth rattled. She looked down at her hands. They were covered in someone's blood. Not hers. She didn't think. "Hey!" Adrian's voice cut through the shock. "Look at me. Are you injured?" No. The word came out broken. What just happened?" "You saved my life." Adrian leaned back, pressing a handkerchief to the cut on his temple. "And signed your own death warrant in the process." The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "We're clear, for now." Mara's mind was a hurricane of disconnected thoughts. Federal agents. Gunfire. Celeste's hidden weapon. The phrase echoed, "Witness." "They think I saw something," she whispered. "But I didn't. I heard her last week. On the phone, talking about killing you." Adrian went very still. "You heard Celeste?" "By the restroom, she was on a call. She said by midnight you'd be dead, and her father's empire would take over yours." Mara looked at him, desperate. "I didn't know if it was real. I thought maybe I misheard. But tonight, the way everyone was positioned, and she had a gun, and you warned me anyway." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Not quite warmth, but something less frozen. "Even though you knew what I was." "I know what everyone says you are," Mara corrected. "I don't know anything for sure." Smart answer. Adrian studied her like she was a particularly interesting equation. "What's your name?" "Mara Vance. Mara Vance." He repeated it slowly, committing it to memory. "You just walked into a coordinated federal sting operation engineered by my fiancée, who, as you correctly deduced, is trying to kill me, and dragged me out of it. Do you have any idea what that makes you?" "Unemployed?" The driver snorted. Adrian's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Dead," he said flatly. "It makes you dead. Celeste will assume you're working for me, The feds will assume you're my accomplice. My enemies will see you as leverage. Congratulations, Miss Vance. You just became the most wanted woman in the city. Mara's brief moment of hysteria-induced humor evaporated. I have a brother, Danny. He's 17. He needs... Give me his address. She did. Adrian pulled out a phone and rattled off instructions to someone on the other end. Protective detail. Immediate. Non-negotiable. And find out who knows about the sister. He ended the call and looked at Mara. Your brother will be safe. I promise you that. Your promises don't mean anything to me. They should. Adrian's voice hardened. Because right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and a dozen different people who want you dead. Celeste will send professionals. The feds will want you as a witness. And if they think you're compromised, they'll bury you to protect their operation. And anyone else who saw what happened tonight will see you as a loose end. Mara's hands were still shaking. She clenched them into fists. I don't know anything. I'm not a threat to anyone. You slipped me a note in front of 24 witnesses. You fled a federal operation with me. And most importantly, Adrian leaned forward, his gray eyes boring into hers. You heard Celeste confess to conspiracy and murder. That makes you the single most valuable piece of evidence in a war that's been building for 5 years. What war? Adrian was quiet for a moment. The car turned onto a private road, trees creating a canopy overhead. They were leaving the city, heading into the hills where the real money lived behind gates and guards. My family has controlled this city's shipping and logistics for 3 generations, he finally said. Legitimate business, mostly. Some gray areas, nothing that crosses the lines I've set. 6 years ago, Vincent Armand tried to muscle into my territory. He runs guns, drugs, people, everything I refuse to touch. I pushed back. We've been in a Cold War ever since. And Celeste is Vincent's daughter. Adrian's jaw tightened. I didn't know. She was perfect. Smart, elegant, seemingly unconnected to anything criminal. We met at a charity gala. She pursued me. I thought... He stopped himself. It doesn't matter what I thought. It was a long game infiltration. Get close, earn my trust, position herself perfectly, then hand me to the feds on charges she helped fabricate. With me gone, my organization fractures and Vincent takes everything. Mara processed this. The federal agents were real? Real and manipulated. Celeste has people inside the bureau. She fed them enough legitimate evidence to justify a raid, then positioned me at that restaurant at exactly the right time. If you hadn't warned me, I'd either be dead or in federal custody. Either way, I'd be finished. The car pulled up to massive iron gates. They swung open automatically, revealing a sprawling estate that looked more like a fortress than a home. Security cameras tracked their progress. Men with visible weapons nodded as they passed. Welcome to my gilded cage, Adrian said dryly. They parked in an underground garage. Adrian got out, and after a moment's hesitation, Mara followed. Her legs were unsteady. Everything felt surreal. The gunfight, the car chase, and now this, walking into the home of a man she'd only ever seen from the safe distance of a water pitcher. They took an elevator up. The doors opened onto a penthouse that could have been featured in architectural magazines, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than Mara's lifetime earnings. Sit, Adrian instructed, gesturing to a leather couch. I need to make some calls. Mara sat, then stood, then sat again. Her mind wouldn't stop racing. She needed to call Danny. She needed to know he was safe. But her phone was back at the restaurant, probably in her locker, probably already confiscated as evidence. A woman appeared, older, gray-haired, wearing slacks and a cardigan that somehow radiated authority. You need medical attention? No, I'm fine. Mara wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. I'm Dr. Chen. I work for Mr. Moreau. Let me check you anyway. Mara submitted to the examination numbly. Dr. Chen confirmed no injuries, handed her a glass of water and 2 pills. What is this? Mild sedative. You're in shock. It'll help. I don't want to sleep. You don't have to, but your hands are shaking so hard you can barely hold that glass, so I suggest you take them. Mara took the pills. Within minutes, the trembling eased. Her thoughts slowed from a scream to a manageable roar. Adrian returned, his jacket discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up. Blood still streaked his hairline, but he seemed unconcerned. He poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and downed it in one swallow. "Your brother is secure," he said without preamble. 4 of my best people are watching him. He doesn't know anything yet. I thought you'd want to tell him yourself." "Can I call him?" "Not yet. Celeste has connections in telecom. Any call you make will be traced. We need to assume everything you owned, phone, apartment, car, is compromised." Mara's world contracted further. "My apartment, my things, already being retrieved. What's essential?" "My laptop. There's a shoebox under my bed with Danny's medical records and our birth certificates. A photo album in the closet." She paused. "That's it. That's everything that matters." Adrian nodded to someone Mara couldn't see. Footsteps retreated. "You'll stay here," Adrian said. "It's the most secure location I have. Tomorrow, we'll work out next steps. You'll need a new identity if you want to disappear." "I'm not disappearing." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Mara stood. The sedative dulled her fear but sharpened her focus. "You said Celeste is trying to destroy you, that she has federal agents in her pocket, that your enemies will use me as leverage." Her voice steadied. "Running won't fix any of that. She'll still come after Danny. The feds will still want me as a witness, and you'll still be fighting a war you didn't tell me I was already part of." "What exactly are you proposing?" "I'm proposing you stop treating me like a victim." Mara crossed her arms. "I heard her confession. I saw the setup. I know things. Maybe I can help." "You're a waitress." "I'm an observer. I notice patterns, details, the things people miss when they're too busy being powerful." Mara met his gaze. "You didn't see Celeste's trap until I told you. How many other things are you missing because you're looking at the wrong angle?" Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "You have no idea what you're volunteering for. Then tell me." He studied her. "If you stay, you're not a guest. You're not under my protection as charity. You become part of this. That means danger. It means choices that will change who you are. It means crossing lines you can't uncross." "I already crossed them the moment I slipped you that note." "Fair point." Adrian walked to the window, hands in his pockets. The city glittered below, a constellation of lies and neon. "Celeste won't stop. She'll spin tonight into a narrative where I'm the villain and she's the victim. She'll use her federal contacts to paint you as my accomplice. By morning, your face will be on the news as a wanted criminal." "Let her," Mara said. "While everyone's looking at the story she's telling, we find the truth she's hiding." Adrian turned. "We? I have one condition." Mara's voice was iron. "Danny stays safe. No matter what happens to me, you keep him protected. Swear it." "I already did." "Swear it again. On something that actually matters to you." Adrian walked back to her, stopping close enough that Mara had to tilt her head to maintain eye contact. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the weight of wars fought in silence. "I swear on my sister's memory," he said quietly. "She died because I failed to protect her from Vincent Armand 10 years ago. I will not fail your brother. Whatever happens, Danny lives safe." The words hit like a vow, binding and terrible. Mara nodded. "Then I'm in." "You're insane." "Probably." Mara felt something shift inside her, the last vestige of her old life cracking away. "But I'm done being invisible. I'm done watching bad things happen and pretending I don't see. So if there's a war, I'm choosing a side." Adrian extended his hand. Mara shook it. His grip was firm, his skin cold. "Welcome to the war, Miss Vance," he said. "Try not to die in the first week." Somewhere across the city, in a restaurant cordoned off by police tape, Celeste Armand sat in an interrogation room spinning lies with the skill of a practiced artist. She told them about Adrian's violence, his threats, how she'd feared for her life. She cried on cue. She named Mara Vance as his accomplice, planting evidence with words alone. By midnight, Mara's face was on every news channel, wanted in connection with federal investigation, armed and dangerous. Do not approach. Mara watched herself on Adrian's television, a grainy photo from her staff ID looking back at her like a stranger. "So that's it," she said quietly. "I'm a criminal now." "Not yet," Adrian said, "but give it time." The television cut to footage of Celeste, doe-eyed and trembling, being escorted from Vesper House. She looked like innocence incarnate. The performance was flawless. Mara felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Not fear, not anymore. Rage. She's good, Mara admitted. She's the best. Adrian stood beside her, watching his former fiancée destroy him with manufactured tears. Vincent trained her from childhood for this. Every smile, every touch, every word, calculated. I never stood a chance. Yes, you did. Mara looked at him. You have something she doesn't. What's that? Me. Mara turned back to the screen. I heard her real voice. I know what she's hiding. And unlike you, I'm not blinded by history or emotion or trust. I can see her for exactly what she is. Which is? A liar who's about to lose. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Mara nodded, but she knew she wouldn't sleep. Somewhere in this city, her brother was being guarded by strangers. Her apartment was being raided. Her life was being erased and rewritten. And somewhere, Celeste Armand was celebrating a victory she thought was complete. But Mara Vance had learned something tonight that Celeste would never understand. Invisible people see everything. And now, the invisible girl was visible, angry, and ready to fight. Outside the windows, the city pulsed with sirens and secrets. Inside the fortress, a waitress turned fugitive stood at the edge of a war she didn't start but was determined to finish. The game had changed, and Mara was done playing by anyone else's rules. She walked to the guest room Adrian had indicated, her footsteps silent on marble floors. Inside, she found her laptop and the shoebox already waiting on the bed. Adrian's people worked fast. She opened the laptop, stared at the blank screen. Then she opened a new document and started typing. Everything I know about Celeste Armand. It wasn't much. A conversation overheard, details observed, patterns recognized. But Mara had built a life on noticing what others missed. She'd survived poverty, family dysfunction, and 3 years of watching the wealthy play games with other people's lives. She knew how to see the truth hiding behind expensive perfume and perfect smiles. Celeste thought she'd won, thought she'd eliminated the threat and secured her victory. She didn't know about the invisible girl with a notebook and a grudge. Mara typed until her eyes burned, documenting everything. Dates, times, phrases, the way Celeste's accent shifted when she was on the phone, the tells in her body language, the pattern of her visits to Vesper House. By dawn, Mara had 20 pages. It wasn't proof. Not yet. But it was a start. She saved the document, encrypted it the way Danny had taught her during his computer science phase, and closed the laptop. Then she walked to the window and watched the sun rise over a city that now saw her as a criminal. Okay, Celeste, she whispered to her reflection. Let's see who's better at this game, the actress or the observer. Behind her, the door opened. Adrian stood there, a fresh cup of coffee in hand. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. No. Mara turned. I was working. On what? Winning. She accepted the coffee. You said Celeste has federal agents in her pocket. We need to find out who. You said she's been feeding them evidence. We need to find out what. And we need to do it before she realizes I'm not just some random waitress she can eliminate. Adrian leaned against the doorframe. You really think you can outmaneuver her? I think she's underestimated me. Mara sipped the coffee. Black, bitter, perfect. People always do. It's my superpower. Being underestimated? Being invisible until I choose not to be. Mara set down the cup. So, where do we start? Adrian pushed off the doorframe. We start with the one thing Celeste doesn't know I have, which is her real identity. He walked into the hallway, and Mara followed. They descended into a basement level she hadn't known existed. Concrete walls, reinforced doors, the kind of security that spoke of serious paranoia or serious threats. Adrian unlocked a steel door and led her into a room lined with monitors and servers. A man sat at one of the terminals, his fingers flying across 3 keyboards simultaneously. Marcus, Adrian said, show her the file. Marcus pulled up a document. Mara leaned in, reading. Celeste Armand. Born Celeste. Marie Vincent. Daughter of Vincent Armand. Née Vincent Calabrese. Trained. Private institutions, Europe. Specializations, infiltration, long-term intelligence operations, financial manipulation. The document went on. Pages and pages of history, training, previous operations. Celeste wasn't just Vincent's daughter. She was his most valuable weapon, deployed against 3 other targets before Adrian. 2 were dead. 1 was in prison. "How long have you known?" Mara asked quietly. 3 days. Adrian's voice was flat. "I had my suspicions, but I needed proof. By the time Marcus confirmed it, Celeste had already set tonight's trap in motion. I couldn't confront her without tipping my hand. I was trying to build a counter-strategy when you handed me that note and threw everything into chaos." Mara stared at the screen. "So you knew she was trying to kill you, and you still went to that restaurant?" "I was going to disappear her there, quietly. No witnesses, no blowback. My people were positioned to intercept." Adrian's jaw tightened, but the federal presence was larger than expected. She'd brought more players to the board. "When you warned me, I had to choose, fight a battle I might not win, or retreat and regroup." "You chose retreat." "I chose survival." He looked at her. "Thanks to you." Mara processed this. "She doesn't know, you know. Not yet. But after tonight, she'll suspect, which means we have a window." Mara's mind raced. "She thinks she's won. She thinks you're running, disgraced, with the feds on your tail and her father poised to take over. She'll get cocky, make mistakes. Or she'll accelerate her endgame and crush us before we can counter. Only if she knows we're countering." Mara turned to Marcus. "Can you make it look like Adrian's organization is collapsing? Fake communications? Planted evidence that his empire is fracturing?" Marcus looked at Adrian, who nodded slowly. "I can make it look like the walls are closing in," Marcus said. "Accounts frozen, allies jumping ship, the whole 9 yards. Why? Because while Celeste's watching Adrian's empire crumble, we'll be watching her." Mara's voice gained certainty. "She'll report to her father. She'll move resources. She'll tie up loose ends, and one of those loose ends is me. When she comes for me, we'll be ready. And when she moves, she'll expose her network." Adrian smiled, a real smile this time, sharp as a blade. "You're not just an observer," he said. "You're a strategist." "I'm a waitress who pays attention," Mara corrected, but she felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Purpose. Direction. The sense that maybe, finally, she wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. And hell, if it didn't feel good. "How long do I have before she makes a move?" Mara asked. Adrian glanced at Marcus, who pulled up another screen, real-time surveillance of various locations across the city. "Based on her previous operations," Marcus said, "she'll secure her victory narrative first. Lock down the federal cooperation, spin the media story, ensure Adrian's reputation is destroyed. That'll take 48 hours, maybe less. Then she'll eliminate threats. Your threat number 1. 48 hours. Mara committed it to memory. "What about the feds? They think I'm Adrian's accomplice. Won't they be looking for me?" "They're looking," Adrian confirmed, "but they're looking for a scared waitress, not someone actively working against Celeste. That gives us an advantage. They'll expect you to run, hide, make mistakes. When you don't, it'll create confusion." "Good." Mara turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. Danny, I need to see him. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, he needs to know I'm okay." Adrian hesitated. "Contact with him is a risk." "I don't care. He's 17 and he just lost his sister to a federal manhunt. He's probably terrified." Mara's voice hardened. "I need to see him. Make it happen." For a long moment, Adrian said nothing. Then he nodded. "Tomorrow. Controlled environment. 5 minutes. Agreed?" "Agreed." Mara left the surveillance room, her mind already 3 steps ahead. Celeste thought she'd won. The feds thought they were closing in on a criminal. The media thought they had a story. None of them knew what was really happening. An invisible girl was becoming visible, and she was about to dismantle everything Celeste had built, one observation at a time. Somewhere across the city, in a penthouse suite that cost more per night than Mara earned in a month, Celeste Armand toasted her father via video call. "To Adrian's downfall," Vincent said, raising a glass of wine. "To the empire will build on its ashes," Celeste replied. Neither of them mentioned the waitress. Neither of them thought she mattered. That was their first mistake. The safe house smelled like coffee and paranoia. Mara sat across from Adrian at a steel table in what he called the war room. A converted basement with reinforced walls, no windows, and enough surveillance equipment to make a government agency jealous. Screens flickered with feeds from across the city, traffic cameras, building lobbies. The entrance to her old apartment complex, where federal agents were still combing through her life like archaeologists excavating a crime scene. "They took your neighbor in for questioning," Marcus said from his terminal, not looking up. His fingers danced across the keyboard. "Mrs. Chen from 4B. She told them you were quiet, kept to yourself, seemed sad most of the time." "Accurate," Mara muttered. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw muzzle flashes and Celeste's perfect smile. Adrian pushed a tablet across the table. "Your brother's secure. This is the live feed." Mara grabbed it. The screen showed Danny in what looked like a luxury apartment, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a gaming setup that probably cost more than their annual rent. He was on the couch, controller in hand, playing something that involved explosions and zombies. Two of Adrian's people sat nearby, casual but alert. Danny looked fine, unharmed, confused probably, but safe. "He doesn't know," Mara said. It wasn't a question. "We told him there was a gas leak at your building, temporary relocation for safety. He bought it." Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact. "He'll stay bought as long as he doesn't see the news. He watches YouTube, not cable. He'll be fine for now." Mara set down the tablet, her chest tight. Seeing Danny safe should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like a countdown timer had started. Every second he remained oblivious was borrowed time. "You'll see him this afternoon," Adrian continued. 3 o'clock. Underground parking garage in the financial district. Controlled entry, multiple exits, 5 minutes, like we agreed. "Thank you." The words felt inadequate, but Mara meant them. Adrian just nodded. He looked worse than last night. Stubble darkening his jaw, exhaustion carving lines around his eyes. The cut on his temple had been cleaned and bandaged, but it still looked angry. He'd changed into black tactical pants and a gray Henley that made him look less like a philanthropist and more like what he actually was. A man who'd survived this long by being harder than his enemies. "Celeste made her first move an hour ago," Marcus announced, pulling up a new feed. "Press conference, live from the federal building downtown." The screen filled with Celeste's face. She sat at a table flanked by FBI agents, her auburn hair pulled into a soft bun, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. She wore a simple navy dress, the kind that screamed victim without trying too hard. The performance had already started. "I just want to say," Celeste's voice trembled beautifully, "I'm cooperating fully with the investigation. Adrian Moreau is a dangerous man. I thought I knew him. I thought I loved him." A pause, perfectly timed. "But the person I loved doesn't exist. He manipulated me, used me to gain access to legitimate business networks, and when I discovered the truth about his criminal activities, he threatened my life." "Liar," Mara hissed. On screen, Celeste continued. "The woman who helped him escape, Mara Vance, has been working with him for months. She's not an innocent bystander. She's part of his organization. She passed him classified information that allowed him to evade federal custody." "Classified information?" Mara's voice rose. "I slipped him a napkin." "Shh." Adrian's hand landed on her shoulder, firm. "Watch." Celeste was fielding questions now. A reporter asked about the engagement. Celeste's face crumpled with practiced precision. "I loved him. That's what makes this so hard. But I can't let my feelings compromise justice. If anyone has information about Adrian Moreau or Mara Vance's whereabouts, please contact the FBI immediately. These people are dangerous." The press conference ended. Marcus muted the feed. "She's good," he said, grudging respect in his voice. "Crying on cue, hitting all the emotional beats. She's selling it." "Of course she is." Adrian's hand left Mara's shoulder. "Vincent trained her in Moscow for 2 years, infiltration, manipulation, social engineering. She's been deployed against targets across 3 continents. I'm just the latest mark." Mara studied his face. "You're taking this really well for someone whose fiancé just destroyed his reputation on national television? I've had worse done to me." Adrian's tone was flat, affectless, and I knew it was coming. Emotional response is a luxury I can't afford right now. That's not healthy. Neither is getting shot, but here we are. Adrian turned to Marcus. "Pull up Celeste's communication records. Phone, Email, encrypted apps. Everything we've intercepted in the last 72 hours. Marcus complied. Data flooded the screens, call logs, text messages, email threads. Most were innocuous. Wedding planning, vendor confirmations. But Marcus highlighted several encrypted communications, their contents still locked behind military-grade security. These went out last night, Marcus explained. After the restaurant. Sent to 3 different numbers, all burner phones, all currently inactive. We're working on triangulating the recipients, but it'll take time. We don't have time. Mara leaned forward, scanning the timestamps. She sent the first one at 11:47 p.m. That's what, 20 minutes after everything went to hell at Vesper House? 18 minutes, Marcus corrected. So she's in the middle of a federal debriefing, playing the traumatized victim, and she's still sending encrypted messages. Mara's mind raced. What's so important it can't wait? Adrian's eyes narrowed. Damage control. She's reporting to Vincent, confirming the operation's status, and she's activating contingencies. Contingencies for what? Loose ends. Adrian's voice went cold. Me, if I surface. You, because you're a witness. Anyone else who saw something they shouldn't have. Mara's stomach dropped. The other staff at Vesper House, Marco, the other servers, already checked, they're fine. None of them saw anything actionable. The feds interviewed them, got nothing useful, let them go. Adrian stood, pacing. But you're different. You warned me. You fled with me. That makes you valuable, either as leverage against me or as a witness Celeste needs to eliminate before you can contradict her story. So what's the play? Mara asked. We sit here and wait for her to send assassins? No. Adrian stopped pacing. We make her think she's already won. Marcus, implement the collapse protocol. Make it look like my organization's falling apart. Leaked communications, frozen accounts, allies defecting. Sell the narrative that I'm desperate and running. That'll take about 6 hours to stage convincingly, Marcus said. Do it in 4. I want Celeste celebrating by dinner. Adrian looked at Mara. While she's distracted, we move on the federal angle. Someone inside the bureau is feeding her information. We find out who. How? Mara asked. We can't exactly walk into FBI headquarters and ask. No. But we can talk to someone who used to work there. Adrian pulled out his phone, dialed. It's me. I need a meet. Today. Non-negotiable. A pause. I don't care if you're retired. You owe me. Another pause. 1 hour. The usual place. He ended the call. Who was that? Mara asked. Former Special Agent Rebecca Torres. She worked organized crime for 15 years before the Bureau forced her out for being too effective. Adrian grabbed his jacket. She knows how the FBI operates, who the corrupt players are, and she hates them enough to help us. Why'd they force her out? She arrested a senator's son on racketeering charges. The senator had friends in high places. Rebecca got buried in administrative reviews until she quit. Adrian's mouth twisted. The Bureau prefers agents who color inside the lines. Rebecca preferred justice. It didn't end well for her. Mara stood. I'm coming with you. No? Yes. Mara crossed her arms. You said I'm part of this now. That means I don't sit on the sidelines while you make decisions that affect my survival. Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed. You'll do exactly what I say. No improvisation, no heroics. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. Liar. But Adrian gestured toward the door. Let's go. They took a different car this time, a nondescript gray sedan that could have belonged to anyone. Adrian drove. Mara sat in the passenger seat watching the city slide past. Morning traffic clogged the streets. People walked to work, clutching coffee cups, oblivious to the fact that their faces were probably being scanned by a dozen different agencies looking for her. Do I look different enough? Mara asked. She'd changed into clothes from Adrian's emergency supply, dark jeans, a black hoodie, sunglasses that covered half her face. Her hair was pulled into a tight ponytail. You look like every other woman trying not to be noticed, Adrian said. Which is the point. Keep your head down. Don't make eye contact. Move with purpose. People don't remember the boring ones. I've been boring my whole life. This should be easy. Being invisible and being boring aren't the same thing. Adrian turned onto a side street, heading toward the waterfront. Invisible people notice everything because nobody notices them. Boring people don't register at all. You need to find the balance. They parked near a pier where fishing boats unloaded their catches. The smell of brine and diesel fuel hung thick in the air. Seagulls screamed overhead. Adrian led Mara down a wooden walkway to a seafood restaurant that looked like it should have been condemned a decade ago. Inside, the lunch crowd was sparse. A few dock workers, a couple that looked like tourists slumming it. Adrian headed straight for a booth in the back where a woman sat nursing a beer at 11 in the morning. Rebecca Torres looked like she'd been carved from granite and disappointment. Late 40s, short, dark hair streaked with gray, a scar running from her left eyebrow to her hairline. She wore a leather jacket over a flannel shirt, and her eyes tracked them like a predator assessing threat levels. "Adrian," her voice was gravel and whiskey, "you look like hell." "You look retired." Adrian slid into the booth. Mara hesitated, then sat beside him. Rebecca's gaze shifted to Mara. "So you're the waitress who broke the internet. Mara Vance, right? Federal fugitive, alleged crime boss enforcer, public enemy number 3 behind Adrian and bin Laden's ghost." "I'm just a waitress," Mara said quietly. "Not anymore, sweetheart." Rebecca took a long pull from her beer. "The moment you helped Adrian escape federal custody, you became a felon, accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice, possibly conspiracy depending on what they can prove. You're looking at 20 years minimum if they catch you." Mara's throat went dry. "I didn't know." "Doesn't matter what you knew, matters what they can prove you did." Rebecca set down her beer. "So, why am I here, Adrian? And make it good because I've got a charter fishing trip at 2 and I'd rather be catching tuna than catching felonies." "Celeste Armand," Adrian said. "You know the name?" Rebecca's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Vincent Armand's daughter. Supposed to be living clean in Europe, running art galleries or some bullshit. What about her? She's the one who set up last night's operation. She fed the FBI enough legitimate evidence to justify a raid, positioned me perfectly, then planned to let me either die in the crossfire or get arrested while she walked away clean." "That's a hell of an accusation." "It's a hell of a truth." Adrian leaned forward. "Someone inside the bureau is working with her. Someone high enough to authorize an operation of that scale, to plant agents, to coordinate with local PD. I need to know who." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "You're asking me to burn my former colleagues, people I worked with for 15 years. I'm asking you to expose a corrupt agent who's helping Vincent Armand expand his criminal empire." Adrian's voice hardened. "How many people has Vincent killed, Rebecca? How many lives has he destroyed with his guns and drugs and trafficking operations? And now his daughter's inside the FBI, feeding them just enough truth to weaponize them against her father's enemies while protecting his actual operations. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. And so do you." Adrian pulled out his phone, showed her something Mara couldn't see. 3 weeks ago, the FBI raided one of Vincent's competitors, a gun-running operation out of Baltimore. Seized $2 million in weapons, arrested 15 people. Big win for the Bureau, right? Rebecca's jaw tightened. Except that operation belonged to the Ortega family, who were cutting into Vincent's territory. The raid eliminated his competition and made the feds look good. Convenient. Adrian put away his phone. 2 months before that, another raid. This time on a trafficking ring in Miami. Also Vincent's competition. Also conveniently eliminated while Vincent's operations went untouched. You're saying someone's using the FBI as Vincent's personal hit squad. I'm saying someone's feeding the Bureau selective intelligence. Real crimes, real evidence, but only targeting Vincent's enemies while his empire grows unchecked. Adrian's eyes were ice. And Celeste is the pipeline. She's been building this for years, getting close to me while simultaneously positioning her federal contact to take me down when the time was right. Rebecca drained her beer, signaled the waitress for another. "Even if that's true, why would I help you? I'm out. I'm done with the Bureau and all its bullshit." "Because you got forced out for doing the right thing," Mara said quietly. Both of them looked at her. She pushed forward, despite her nerves. "Adrian told me what happened. You arrested a senator's son, and they buried you for it. You didn't leave because you wanted to. You left because they punished you for being honest." "Kid, you don't know anything about me." I know you're sitting in a dive bar at 11 a.m. drinking alone, which means you're either an alcoholic or you're still pissed about how things ended. Mara met Rebecca's stare. And I know you answered Adrian's call even though you said you were done, which means part of you still cares about getting it right. Rebecca's expression was unreadable. Then she smiled, sharp and cold. You got balls, I'll give you that. Stupid balls, but balls. She looked at Adrian. What do you need? Access to the case file from last night, names of the agents involved, operational chain of command, any communications that went through official channels. That's all classified. I can't just waltz into headquarters and grab files. But you still have contacts. People who owe you favors. People who are as disgusted with the corruption as you were. Adrian's voice was steady. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal, Rebecca. I'm asking you to help expose someone who's already breaking every rule you ever swore to uphold. Rebecca was silent for a long time. The waitress brought another beer. The dock workers argued about football. Outside, the gulls kept screaming. Finally, Rebecca spoke. There's a guy. Steve Chen, still in the organized crime division. We worked together for 8 years. He's solid, doesn't play politics, hates the brass as much as I did. She pulled out her phone. If anyone's got access to last night's operation files and is willing to share, it's him. But he's not going to hand over classified intel without a damn good reason. Tell him the truth, Mara said. Tell him a federal agent is compromised and working for Vincent Armand. Tell him innocent people are going to die if we don't stop it. Rebecca looked at her like she was seeing Mara for the first time. You really believe that, don't you? That you can stop this? I have to believe it. Mara's voice was steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. Because the alternative is letting Celeste win, and I can't do that. Not after what she's already taken from me. Rebecca held her gaze for another moment, then nodded. All right, I'll reach out to Chen, see what he knows. But this is going to take time, and it's going to be dangerous. If Chen gets caught passing classified information, his career's over. If Celeste finds out we're digging, she'll accelerate her timeline and come after all of us. Let her come, Adrian said quietly. I'm done running. Famous last words. Rebecca stood, threw cash on the table. I'll call you when I have something. Until then, stay off the grid, and don't do anything stupid. Too late for that, Mara muttered. Rebecca actually smiled. Yeah, I'm starting to see that. She left, the door swinging shut behind her. Adrian and Mara sat in silence for a moment. Then Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. What? Mara asked. Marcus. The collapse protocol is working too well. 3 of my legitimate business partners just pulled their contracts. They think I'm actually going down. Isn't that what we wanted? Yes, but it's also going to cost me millions in actual losses. Adrian stood. Come on. We need to get you to that meeting with your brother before the whole city decides I'm finished. They drove to the financial district in tense silence. Mara's nerves were fraying. She was about to see Danny, but she couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't explain why armed strangers were guarding him. Couldn't admit that his sister was now a federal fugitive accused of being a mob enforcer. The parking garage was a concrete labyrinth. Adrian drove to the 3rd sublevel, where a black SUV was already parked. 2 of his people stood nearby, the same ones Mara had seen on the surveillance feed. They nodded as Adrian approached. He's in the car, one of them said. Thinks this is about witness protection for the gas leak. We told him you'd explain everything. Perfect. Adrian looked at Mara. 5 minutes. Don't tell him anything that'll put him in more danger. If he knows the truth, Celeste can use him as leverage. Mara nodded, her throat tight. She walked to the SUV, opened the door. Danny looked up from his phone, relief flooding his face. Mar, what the hell is going on? These guys said there was a gas leak, but nobody's answering questions, and I can't get through to you, and... Hey, breathe. Mara slid into the seat beside him, pulling him into a hug. He was taller than her now, all gangly teenage limbs and nervous energy. I'm okay. Everything's okay. It doesn't feel okay. Danny pulled back, studying her face. You look terrible. Like you haven't slept. I haven't. It's been a crazy couple of days. Mara forced a smile. But I need you to listen, okay? The gas leak is real, and it's not safe for you to go back to the apartment yet. These people are keeping you safe until everything's resolved. What people? Who are they? Private security. I hired them. Danny's eyes narrowed. He'd always been too smart for his own good. With what money? Mar, we can barely afford rent. How are you paying for armed bodyguards in a luxury apartment? I got a loan. The lie came easier than it should have. From my boss at the restaurant. He's helping out until the building's cleared. Your boss? Danny didn't sound convinced. The guy who pays you minimum wage and makes you work double shifts. He's generous when it counts. Mara grabbed Danny's hand. Look, I know this is weird and scary, but I need you to trust me. Stay with these guys, don't leave the apartment, and don't talk to anyone about where you are or who you're with. Can you do that? For how long? I don't know. A few days, maybe a week. A week? Danny's voice rose. Mar, I've got school, I've got exams coming up. I know. I'm handling it. Mara squeezed his hand. Your teachers are being notified. You can do your work remotely. Everything's going to be fine. Danny stared at her, then quietly, You're lying to me. Mara's heart stopped. What? You always touch your collarbone when you lie. Right there. He pointed to the spot where Mara's fingers had unconsciously drifted. You've done it since we were kids, so I know this isn't about a gas leak, and I know something's really wrong. What's actually happening? For a moment, Mara considered telling him everything. The restaurant, the note, the gunfight, Celeste's vendetta. But Adrian's warning echoed in her head. If he knows the truth, Celeste can use him as leverage. I'm in some trouble, Mara said carefully. Nothing I can't handle, but it's complicated and I need you somewhere safe while I work it out. That's the truth, Danny. I swear. What kind of trouble? The kind I can't explain right now. Mara's voice cracked. But I promise I'm going to fix it. I just need you to trust me and stay safe. Can you do that? Danny searched her face. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay. But, Mar, if something happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Mara pulled him into another hug, fierce and desperate. Because I've got too much to lose. I'm not leaving you, Danny. Not now. Not ever. They held each other for a long moment. Then one of the guards tapped on the window, signaling time was up. Mara pulled away, wiping her eyes. I'll call when I can. Stay safe. You too. Danny's voice was small, scared in a way that broke her heart. She got out of the SUV, not looking back because if she did, she'd break. She'd climb back in and tell him everything and damn the consequences. Adrian was waiting by the sedan. How'd it go? He knows I'm lying. Mara's voice was hollow. He doesn't know what about, but he knows. He'll be safer not knowing. Will he? Mara spun on Adrian, months of fear and exhaustion boiling over. Because right now, my 17-year-old brother is being guarded by armed strangers in a luxury apartment while his sister's face is plastered across every news channel as a criminal. How is any of this keeping him safe? Because the alternative is Celeste grabbing him off the street and putting a bullet in his head to get your attention. Adrian's voice was cold, brutal. That's what Vincent does. That's what Celeste learned from him. They don't make threats, they make examples. If they think Danny can be used against you, he's already dead. The only reason he's still breathing is because they don't know where he is. The words hit like a physical blow. Mara stumbled back against the car, her legs suddenly weak. I'm sorry, Adrian said, his tone softening marginally, but you need to understand what we're up against. Celeste doesn't play games, she executes plans. And if she decides Danny's a liability or leverage, nothing will stop her except us getting to her first. Then we get to her first, Mara said, her voice shaking with rage and fear. Whatever it takes. I don't care anymore about being careful or smart. I want her stopped. Good. Adrian opened the car door. Because Rebecca just texted. Chen's willing to meet, tonight. And what he has to say might finally give us the ammunition we need. They drove back to the safe house in silence. Mara stared out the window, watching the city blur past. Somewhere out there, Celeste was celebrating. Somewhere, federal agents were building a case against Mara based on lies. Somewhere, people who'd never heard her name were deciding her guilt. And somewhere, a 17-year-old kid was trying to understand why his sister had suddenly become a stranger. Mara closed her eyes, but she didn't pray. She'd stopped believing in that kind of salvation years ago. Instead, she made herself a promise. Whatever it took, however far she had to go, she would end this. Celeste Armand had started a war, Mara Vance was going to finish it. Back at the safe house, Marcus had news. The collapse protocol worked. Vincent's people are celebrating. Celeste sent 3 more encrypted messages in the last hour, all triumphant in tone based on linguistic analysis, and half the city thinks Adrian Moreau's empire is crumbling. Perfect. Adrian sat at the conference table, spreading out documents. What about Chen? When's the meet? 9 p.m. Abandoned subway station on the east side. He's paranoid about surveillance, so it has to be off-grid. Smart. Adrian looked at Mara. You should stay here. No. Mara. No. She sat across from him, her jaw set. You need me there. If Chen's got information about the federal operation, I might recognize details you'd miss. I was at that restaurant. I saw the positioning, the timing, the faces. You were too busy surviving to catalog everything. Adrian considered this. Fine. But if anything goes wrong, I run. I know. Mara met his gaze. I'm not trying to be a hero, Adrian. I'm trying to survive. And right now, survival means knowing exactly what Celeste's planning. The hours until the meeting crawled past. Mara tried to eat but couldn't stomach more than a few bites. She tried to sleep but gave up after 20 minutes of staring at the ceiling. Instead, she went back to her laptop, refining the document she'd started. Everything she knew about Celeste. Patterns were emerging. Celeste visited Vesper House every Friday for 6 weeks before the operation. Always with Adrian, always table 9, always the same charming performance. But 3 times she'd excused herself to take phone calls. And twice, Mara had seen her talking to the man in the navy blazer, the one who'd been at the restaurant last night, the one who'd stood up when Adrian tried to leave. Federal agent? Or Vincent's plant? Mara made notes, cross-referencing timestamps from her shifts with the reservation logs Marcus had pulled from the restaurant's system. A picture started forming, choreographed, precise, months in the making. You're good at this, Adrian said from the doorway. Mara jumped. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. He walked over, looked at her screen. You're building a timeline. I'm building a profile. Every interaction Celeste had at Vesper House, every detail that seemed off. Mara pointed to her notes. She's methodical. Nothing spontaneous. Even her laugh. I watched it 3 different nights. Same rhythm, same duration. She practiced it. Vincent trained her to be a weapon. Emotions, reactions, everything's calculated. Except she made a mistake. Mara pulled up a photo Marcus had found. Surveillance footage from the restaurant's exterior the night before the operation. Celeste stood outside talking on her phone. Her face was partially obscured, but her body language was different, tense, urgent. She was stressed, Mara said. Right here, the night before. Something wasn't going according to plan. Adrian studied the image. What do you think it was? I think she was worried you'd figure it out, or that the feds would screw something up, or that Vincent was pressuring her. Mara zoomed in on Celeste's expression. She's human, which means she can make mistakes, which means we can beat her. Don't underestimate her just because you found one moment of weakness. I'm not underestimating her. I'm understanding her. Mara looked up at Adrian. You loved her, or thought you did. That's a blind spot. But I never loved her. I only observed her. That's my advantage. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, my sister used to say something similar, that emotions were weaknesses other people could exploit. She tried to teach me to be cold, calculating. I never learned the lesson. What happened to her? Vincent Armand killed her. Adrian's voice was flat, empty. 10 years ago. She ran part of my logistics operation, legitimate shipping contracts, nothing illegal, but one of our routes overlapped with Vincent's gun-running corridors. She refused to back down when he demanded we reroute, so he had her car run off the road. Made it look like an accident. Mara's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just help me make sure he doesn't kill anyone else. Adrian stopped himself. Anyone else. The unfinished sentence hung between them. Mara didn't push. She just nodded. At 8:30, they left for the meeting. The abandoned subway station was exactly as sketchy as it sounded, a relic from the city's failed expansion project 20 years ago, now a haven for rats and graffiti artists. Adrian had brought 2 of his people as backup, but they stayed topside while he and Mara descended into the darkness. Their footsteps echoed on concrete. Emergency lights cast sickly yellow pools every 20 feet. The air smelled like rust and decay. Chen should be here by now, Adrian muttered, checking his watch. Maybe he's being cautious. Mara's voice sounded too loud in the empty space. They reached the platform. The rails were overgrown with weeds, the tiles cracked and stained. At the far end, a figure stood in shadows. Chen? Adrian called out. The figure stepped forward. Not Chen. Celeste Armand smiled. Hello, darling. Did you really think I wouldn't know about Rebecca Torres? About her loyal little friend in the bureau? Adrian's hand went to his concealed weapon. Where's Chen? Indisposed, permanently. Celeste's voice was light, conversational. He tried to warn Rebecca an hour ago. Sloppy tradecraft. We intercepted the call. Now he's enjoying an unexpected vacation in a landfill outside the city. Horror crashed through Mara. You killed him. I eliminated a threat. There's a difference. Celeste's gaze shifted to Mara, and something predatory gleamed in her eyes. And speaking of threats, hello, Mara. I've been wanting to meet you properly, the little waitress who ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, Mara said, fighting to keep her voice steady. I just saw through you. You saw nothing. Celeste took another step forward. Behind her, more figures emerged from the shadows. 6, 7, 8 armed men spreading out across the platform. You stumbled into something you don't understand, and now you're going to die for it. Adrian moved in front of Mara. You won't touch her. Oh, Adrian. Celeste's smile widened. I already have. While you were busy meeting with Rebecca and playing spy games, my people picked up someone very important. 17 years old, brown hair, recently recovered from leukemia. Very sweet kid. Kept asking about his sister. Mara's world tilted. No. Danny's fine, for now. Celeste pulled out her phone, showed them a photo. Danny, unconscious, zip-tied to a chair in a bare room. But his continued health depends entirely on what happens in the next 5 minutes. So here's how this works. Mara Vance walks out of here with me. Adrian gets to live, for now, because killing him creates complications I don't need yet. But if either of you tries anything heroic, Danny doesn't see tomorrow. You're lying, Adrian said. My people were guarding him. Your people are very dead. I had 12 operatives hit that apartment 30 minutes ago. It was over in 90 seconds. Celeste's voice was casual, discussing groceries. Now, decision time. Mara walks with me and Danny lives, or you try to fight and I make one phone call that ends with your brother choking on his own blood. Mara couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. Adrian's people were the best. They'd promised Danny was safe. But Celeste was holding proof. Don't do it, Adrian said quietly. She'll kill him anyway. She'll kill both of you. Maybe. Celeste shrugged. Or maybe I just want Mara out of the picture so the media narrative stays clean. Maybe Danny's more useful alive as leverage for future cooperation. You won't know unless she comes with me. Mara looked at the photo again. Danny, unconscious, helpless. She thought about every choice that had led her here. The note she'd slipped Adrian. The decision to stay instead of run. The promise she'd made to fight. And she thought about Danny, who'd survived cancer only to be swallowed by his sister's war. I'll go, Mara said. No, Adrian grabbed her arm. Mara, don't. He's my brother. Mara pulled free, her voice breaking. He's everything. If there's any chance at all, I have to take it. She's lying. This is a trap. I know. Mara looked at Adrian, memorizing his face. But it's the only choice I have. She walked forward. Celeste's men moved to intercept, flanking her on both sides. Celeste herself approached, triumphant. Smart girl, Celeste purred. You know when you're beaten. I know when my brother's life is on the line. Mara held Celeste's gaze. You want me? Fine. But you swear. Danny doesn't get hurt. I swear. Celeste's smile was venomous. On my father's empire. Danny Vance lives as long as you cooperate. Don't believe her, Adrian shouted, but his own people had appeared from the opposite tunnel, guns drawn, blocking his advance. More of Celeste's plants. The whole thing had been a setup from the beginning. Goodbye, Adrian, Celeste called out. Enjoy your crumbling empire. When I'm done, there won't be anything left of you but a memory and a mugshot. They dragged Mara toward the service tunnel. She looked back once, saw Adrian standing alone on the platform, fury and helplessness warring on his face. Then the darkness swallowed everything. Mara was shoved into a van. Zip ties bit into her wrists. Someone threw a hood over her head. The van lurched forward, and she tumbled against the metal floor. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded. No one answered. The van drove for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 minutes. When it finally stopped, rough hands hauled Mara out. She was marched across gravel, then concrete, then down stairs that spiraled into cold, stale air. When the hood came off, she was in a basement. Concrete walls, single bare bulb, and in the corner, zip-tied to a chair exactly like in the photo. "Danny!" He was awake now, eyes wide with terror. "Mar? What's happening? Where are we?" "It's okay, it's going to be okay." Mara tried to go to him, but Celeste's men held her back. Celeste descended the stairs, unhurried. How touching. The desperate sister and the terrified brother. It's like a bad movie. "You have me," Mara said, fighting the grip on her arms. "Let him go. That was the deal." The deal was Danny lives as long as you cooperate. Celeste circled them both like a shark. "And you're going to cooperate beautifully. Because here's what happens now. You're going to record a video confession. You're going to admit you've been working for Adrian Moreau for months. You're going to detail every criminal activity you witnessed, every order you followed, every law you broke. And you're going to do it convincingly. Because if you don't..." She pulled out a knife, pressed it to Danny's throat. He whimpered. "Stop!" Mara screamed. "I'll do it. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt him." "That's what I thought." Celeste withdrew the knife. "See, I don't need you dead, Mara. I just need you discredited. Once you confess on camera, any testimony you might give about me becomes worthless. You're a proven criminal, desperate to save yourself. Who'd believe you?" "You planned this," Mara said, her voice hollow. "From the beginning. You knew I'd come after Danny." "I plan everything." Celeste smiled. "That's why I always win. Now, let's begin." They set up a camera. Celeste fed Mara the lines, and with her brother's life hanging by a thread, Mara spoke. "My name is Mara Vance, and I've been working for Adrian Moreau's criminal organization for 8 months. The words felt like poison. Each sentence was a nail in her own coffin, sealing her fate as a liar, a criminal, a co-conspirator. And through it all, Danny watched with broken, confused eyes. When it was over, Celeste reviewed the footage. Perfect. This will be leaked to the media by morning. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll be the most hated woman in the country. She looked at Mara. "Any last words before I decide what to do with you?" Mara met her gaze. "You made a mistake." Celeste laughed. "Really? What mistake did I make?" "You assumed I came alone." For the first time, confusion flickered across Celeste's face. "What?" The lights went out. Gunfire exploded in the darkness. Mara threw herself to the floor as chaos erupted. Someone cut her zip ties, Adrian's voice in her ear. "Get Danny, now!" Mara scrambled toward her brother, her hands finding him in the blackness. "Danny, we have to go. I can't see anything." His voice was high with panic. "I've got you." Mara ripped at his zip ties with her teeth, her fingers, anything. They came free. She grabbed his hand. "Run!" Emergency lights kicked on, bathing everything in red. Bodies on the floor. Celeste's men, taken down by Adrian's team in the first seconds of the blackout. Celeste herself was gone, vanished through some back exit. Adrian appeared, blood on his knuckles. "This way." They ran. Up the stairs, through corridors, out into an alley where cars were already waiting. Danny was sobbing, Mara was shaking, and Adrian was shouting orders into a phone. They piled into a cars. It screeched away from the building, some kind of abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. "How did you find us?" Mara gasped. "GPS tracker in your shoe." "I planted it before we left for the subway station." Adrian's voice was grim. "I knew Celeste would make a move. I just didn't know it'd be this fast." "She has a confession," Mara said, despair crushing her. "On video. She's going to release it." "I know. We'll deal with it." "How?" "I just destroyed any credibility I had. No one will ever believe me now." "Mara..." "She won," Mara's voice cracked. "Don't you get it? She got exactly what she wanted. I'm discredited, you're cornered, and Danny..." She looked at her brother, who was curled into a ball, shaking. "Danny's traumatized because of me." "You saved his life," Adrian said quietly. I put it in danger in the first place. Tears burned Mara's eyes. This is my fault. All of it. No. Adrian's hand landed on her shoulder, firm. This is Celeste's fault, and Vincent's fault, and every corrupt system that let them get this far. You tried to do the right thing. That's not a crime. But it felt like one. They drove to a new safe house, more remote, more secure. Danny was checked by Dr. Chen, given sedatives to help him sleep. Mara sat with him until his breathing evened out, his face finally relaxing. I'm sorry, she whispered to his sleeping form. I'm so sorry. She left the room, found Adrian in the kitchen. He was pouring whiskey with shaking hands, the first sign of vulnerability she'd seen from him. Chen's dead, he said without looking up. Rebecca called. They found his body an hour ago, shot twice in the head, execution style. Mara sank into a chair. Because of us. Because of Celeste. Adrian downed the whiskey. She's cleaning house, eliminating anyone who might have evidence against her. Then we're next. Probably. Adrian poured another drink, pushed it toward Mara. But she made mistakes tonight, too. Like what? She let us live. She had us trapped. She had the upper hand, and she chose to make you record a confession instead of just killing you. Adrian's eyes were calculating. That means the confession matters. That means she needs the narrative, not just our deaths. Which means the public perception of this war is more important to her than the actual war. Mara considered this. So we fight back on the same front. We destroy her narrative. How? Your confession will be everywhere by morning. Then we release the truth first. Mara pulled out her laptop. Somehow it had survived the chaos, still in her bag. She opened the document she'd been building. Everything I know about Celeste, her patterns, her tells, her mistakes. We turn it into something the media can't ignore. They won't believe you over a video confession. They will if we have proof. Mara looked at Adrian. You said you have recordings of Celeste, conversations, phone calls, anything that contradicts her victim's story. Some. Not enough to prove her crimes, but enough to raise questions. Questions are a start. Mara's mind raced, the exhaustion burning away under a new surge of determination. We leak it all. Every inconsistency, every suspicious pattern. We make people doubt. And once they start doubting, they start digging. And once they start digging, they find the truth. Adrian almost smiled. You really think this'll work? I think it's the only play we have left. Mara saved her document. Celeste thinks she's won. That's when people get careless. So while she's celebrating, we make our move. Adrian nodded slowly. All right, we go to war. For real this time. No more defense, no more hiding. We take the fight to her. And Vincent, Mara added, we end this. All of it. You understand what that means? The kind of line you're crossing? Mara thought about Danny, terrorized and traumatized. She thought about Chen, executed for trying to help. She thought about Celeste's knife against her brother's throat. I crossed the line the moment I slipped you that note, she said. There's no going back now. No, Adrian agreed. There isn't. They worked through the night. Mara writing, Adrian coordinating with Marcus, piecing together a counter-narrative built on truth and evidence. By dawn, they had a package ready. Documents, recordings, timelines, everything that exposed the holes in Celeste's perfect story. We release this in 6 hours, Adrian said. That gives Celeste enough time to leak your confession and start her victory lap. Then we drop the bomb. What if it's not enough? Then we move to plan B. Which is? Adrian's smile was cold. We stop playing by the rules entirely. We find Vincent and we end him. Without Vincent backing her, Celeste loses her power base. She becomes just another criminal trying to survive. That's murder, Mara said quietly. Yes, it is. Adrian met her gaze. And if you're not ready to go that far, I understand. You can walk away. Take Danny, disappear, and I'll make sure you're safe. Mara looked at her hands. They'd been steady when she'd slipped Adrian that note. They'd shaken when she'd held her brother. They'd been tied when Celeste had forced her confession. Now they were steady again. I'm not walking away, she said. Whatever it takes. I'm seeing this through. Even if it means becoming someone you don't recognize? I already don't recognize myself. Mara looked up. The Mara Vance who waited tables and kept her head down died in that restaurant. I don't know who I am now, but I know what I want. I want Celeste destroyed. I want Vincent dead. I want my brother safe. And I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. "Welcome to the point of no return," he said. "There's no coming back from this." Mara shook his hand. "Good," she said. "I don't want to come back." Somewhere across the city, Celeste Armand uploaded Mara's confession to a secure server, preparing to leak it to every major news outlet. She poured champagne, texted her father the good news, and smiled at her reflection. She'd won. Adrian was cornered. Mara was discredited. The empire was hers for the taking. She had no idea that the invisible girl she'd underestimated was no longer invisible. And she was coming with fire. The confession video went live at 6:14 in the morning. Mara watched it spread across the internet like a virus, first on a fringe conspiracy site, then picked up by local news, then exploding across every major network within 20 minutes. Her own face stared back at her from a dozen screens in Adrian's surveillance room, her voice flat and defeated as she recited the scripted lies Celeste had forced into her mouth. "My name is Mara Vance, and I've been working for Adrian Moreau's criminal organization for 8 months. I helped him evade federal custody. I witnessed illegal transactions. I knew he was guilty, and I helped him anyway because he paid me." The words tasted like ash, even in memory. "It's everywhere," Marcus said, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he tracked the video's spread. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, 5 million views in the first hour. The narrative's already set. You're the accomplice, Adrian's the crime boss, Celeste's the brave victim who escaped. "Then we counter it," Adrian said. He stood behind Mara's chair, his presence solid and unyielding. "Release our package, everything we compiled last night. Hit them with the truth before the lies have time to cement." Marcus hesitated. "You sure? Once we release this, there's no taking it back. We're exposing sources, methods, everything. If it doesn't work, it'll work," Mara said, though her voice shook. She'd spent the last 6 hours assembling a counter-narrative built on fragments and observations. Celeste's inconsistencies, the suspicious federal operation, the pattern of raids that eliminated Vincent's competitors while leaving his empire untouched. It wasn't proof, not concrete, courtroom-ready proof, but it was doubt. And doubt was a weapon. "Do it," Adrian ordered. Marcus uploaded the files to a network of encrypted servers, then released them through multiple anonymous channels simultaneously. Blogs, whistleblower sites, journalists known for investigating corruption. Within minutes, the counter-narrative began its own viral spread. Mara watched the chaos unfold across the monitors. Her document, the timeline she'd built, appeared on a legal advocacy site. Then an investigative journalist's Twitter feed linked to it with the caption, "If Mara Vance is guilty, why do these patterns suggest FBI corruption?" A civil rights lawyer picked it up next, adding her own analysis of the suspicious raid timing. "It's gaining traction," Marcus reported. "Not as fast as the confession, but people are starting to ask questions." Adrian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned. "It's Rebecca Torres." He answered on speaker. "Tell me you're not calling to say I told you so." Rebecca's voice was tight, strained. "Chen's funeral is tomorrow. His wife wants to know if you're planning to attend so she can have extra security." "Rebecca, he died because of you, Adrian, because you dragged him into your war with Vincent." Her voice cracked. "He had 3 kids. 3. And now they don't have a father because you needed information." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Mara felt them settle on her shoulders alongside all the other weight she was carrying. "I'm sorry," Adrian said quietly. "If I could take it back." "You can't. None of us can." Rebecca exhaled shakily. "But I'm not calling to blame you. I'm calling to warn you. The Bureau knows about your counter-release. They're calling it a disinformation campaign. They're doubling down on the narrative that you and Mara are desperate criminals trying to muddy the waters." "Of course they are," Adrian said. "Celeste has them in her pocket." "Maybe. Or maybe they genuinely believe she's the victim." Rebecca paused. "There's something else. The SAC, Special Agent in Charge, running the investigation into you. His name is David Park. He's got a reputation for being incorruptible, by the book, the kind of guy who'd arrest his own mother if she broke the law." So he's either clean or the best liar in the bureau, Mara said. That's what I can't figure out. Rebecca's frustration was audible. I've known Park for 10 years. If he's dirty, he's been hiding it perfectly. But if he's clean, that means Celeste's manipulation is so good she's fooled one of the best investigators in the country. Adrian's jaw tightened. Can you get to him? Make him question the narrative? I can try. But Adrian, if Park's clean and I approach him with accusations against a federal witness, I'm the one who looks crazy. Rebecca sighed. I'll see what I can do, but you need to understand. The Bureau's mobilizing. They're treating you as an active fugitive and a threat. Every cop in the city has your photos. You can't show your face anywhere without risking arrest. I know. And Mara's face is even more public now. Between the confession and the manhunt, she's the most recognizable person in the country. Mara looked at her reflection in one of the dead monitors. The woman staring back looked haunted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun, fear and fury warring in her expression. She barely recognized herself. We'll manage, Adrian said. You better, because if you get caught, there won't be a trial. Celeste will make sure you both disappear into the system and never come out. Rebecca ended the call. Silence filled the surveillance room. Marcus kept typing, tracking the spread of both narratives, the confession and the counter-evidence, as they battled for dominance in the court of public opinion. On one screen, a cable news pundit called Mara the face of millennial moral bankruptcy. On another, a civil liberties activist questioned why the FBI had conducted such an aggressive raid on what appeared to be circumstantial evidence. It's working, Marcus said. Not enough to exonerate you, but enough to create reasonable doubt. Some people are starting to wonder if the whole thing's a setup. Some people isn't enough, Mara said. We need proof. Real, undeniable proof that Celeste is lying and the Bureau's being manipulated. We need Vincent, Adrian corrected. He's the root of this. Celeste's operating under his protection, using his resources. If we cut off the head, the body dies. Vincent Armand hasn't been photographed in public in 5 years, Marcus said. He operates through proxies and shell companies. Even the FBI doesn't know where he is most of the time. But Celeste does. Mara stood, pacing. Her mind was racing, pieces clicking together. She's his daughter. She reports to him, which means she has a way to contact him, a way to reach him that bypasses all his security. You want to trace Celeste's communications, Adrian said, following her logic. I want to follow her. Mara turned to face him. She thinks she's won. She thinks we're cornered and desperate. That makes her confident. Confident people get sloppy. If we can track her movements, find out where she goes when she's not playing victim for the cameras, maybe she'll lead us to Vincent. Marcus pulled up a new screen. I've been monitoring her known locations. Her apartment in the city, the federal building where she's been giving statements, a few restaurants and cafes. Nothing unusual. What about her phone? Mara asked. Encrypted. High-level military-grade security. I can track the general cell tower pings, but I can't access the content. Can you track her car? She's been using federal vehicles. They've got GPS, but it's on the Bureau's network. If I hack into that, we'll set off alarms. Mara thought about the night at Vesper House. Celeste had been so careful, so controlled. But there'd been that moment outside, the night before the operation, when she'd looked stressed, urgent, human. She has a private phone, Mara said suddenly. Think about it. She can't use her regular phone to contact Vincent, too traceable. And she can't use the federal phones they've probably given her. She needs a burner, something completely off the grid. If it's off the grid, we can't track it, Marcus pointed out. But we can track her. Mara grabbed her laptop, pulled up the surveillance footage from Vesper House that Marcus had archived. She found the clip she wanted, Celeste outside the restaurant talking on her phone. Look at this. Different phone from the one she used inside. Smaller, older model. She pulled it from her left jacket pocket, not her purse. Adrian leaned in, studying the footage. You're right. That's a burner. And she's probably still using it, Mara continued. Which means if we can get close enough to her, we can identify the device, clone the signal, and track it. That requires being within 20 feet of her, Marcus said. How do you plan to get that close when half the city's looking for you? Mara met Adrian's gaze. She wants me dead or discredited. Either way, she wants confirmation. If we dangle me as bait, she'll come. Absolutely not, Adrian said immediately. It's the only way. It's suicide. Celeste will kill you the moment she has the chance. Not if we control the environment. Not if we make her think she's in control while we're actually 3 steps ahead. Mara's voice was steady, despite the fear crawling up her spine. We pick the location, we set the trap, and we use her confidence against her. And if something goes wrong, if she brings more people than we anticipate, if the feds show up, then we adapt. Mara crossed her arms. Adrian, we're out of options. The confession is destroying any credibility I had. Your empire's collapsing under the weight of manufactured evidence. We're running out of time and leverage. If we don't make a move now, we lose everything. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Marcus. Can you clone a burner phone signal in an active situation? If I'm close enough and have the right equipment, yeah. But it's risky. Modern burners have better encryption than they used to. How close? 10 feet, maybe 15 if the signal's strong. Adrian turned back to Mara. If we do this, and I'm not saying we are, how do you propose drawing Celeste out? Mara had been thinking about this since the moment the confession went live. We leak that I'm willing to turn myself in, but not to the FBI, to her, directly. We say I want to negotiate, my testimony in exchange for Danny's permanent safety. She'll never believe you'd trust her. She'll believe I'm desperate enough to try, and she's arrogant enough to think she can control the situation. Mara pulled up a blank document on her laptop. We craft a message. Make it sound broken, defeated. Send it through a channel she monitors. Give her a time and place. Where? Marcus asked. Mara thought about it. Somewhere public enough that Celeste would feel safe, but isolated enough that they could control the approach. Somewhere with multiple exits and limited surveillance. Her mind sifted through possibilities, discarding each one until the observation deck, she said, top of the Meridian building. It's closed for renovations, but the structure's still accessible, high enough that there's no easy federal response if she calls in backup, public enough that she won't expect an ambush, and isolated enough that we can control who gets close. Adrian considered this. The Meridian's been shut down for 3 months. Security's minimal. It could work. It has to work, Mara said, because this is the last card we have to play. They spent the next 4 hours planning every detail. Marcus acquired the equipment needed to clone the burner phone signal, a portable receiver disguised as a camera bag. Adrian positioned 3 of his best people around the Meridian building with clear sight lines and escape routes. Mara drafted the message to Celeste, rewriting it 6 times until it sounded desperate enough to be believable, but not so pathetic it raised suspicion. The final version read, I know you've won. The confession destroyed me. But my brother's still a target, and I need guarantees he'll be safe. I'll turn myself in to you directly. Just you. No feds, no media. We talk, I give you what you want, and Danny gets to live. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Meridian Building Observation Deck. Come alone, or I disappear, and you get nothing. She'll think it's a trap, Adrian said, reading over Mara's shoulder. Of course she will. But she'll come anyway because she can't resist confirming the kill. Mara hit send, routing the message through an encrypted channel Marcus had confirmed Celeste monitored. And when she does, we'll be ready. The message delivered. They waited. 20 minutes later, Marcus's screen lit up. Response incoming. They crowded around the monitor. Celeste's reply was brief. 3 p.m., alone. Anything suspicious, and Danny dies screaming. She took the bait, Marcus breathed. Of course she did, Mara said. She thinks I'm beaten. She thinks this is her victory lap. Or she's walking into her own trap and planning to kill you the moment you show up, Adrian countered. Then we'll die fighting instead of hiding. Mara met his gaze. I'm done being afraid, Adrian. Fears kept me small my whole life. Not anymore. The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Danny woke up around noon, disoriented and scared. Mara spent an hour with him, lying about what was happening, promising everything would be okay soon. The lies tasted like poison, but she told them anyway because the truth, that she was about to walk into a confrontation that could end with her dead, would destroy him. I love you, she told him, hugging him tight before she left. No matter what happens, remember that. You're scaring me, Danny whispered. I'm just being dramatic. I'll see you tonight. Another lie. Mara was getting better at those. At 2:30, they left for the Meridian building. Mara wore the same clothes from the confession video, a deliberate choice to make Celeste think she was broken and defeated. Adrian drove, his jaw set, his hands tight on the wheel. Marcus rode in a second vehicle with the signal cloning equipment. The Meridian building loomed over the financial district, 40 stories of glass and steel, empty since a pension fund scandal had bankrupted the development company. The observation deck on the 40th floor offered panoramic views of the city and exactly one elevator access point, perfect kill box. They took the service entrance, bypassing what little security remained. The elevator groaned as it carried them upward, the numbers ticking past with agonizing slowness. Mara's heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms were sweating. Every instinct screamed at her to run. She didn't run. The elevator opened onto the observation deck. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire floor, offering views that probably looked stunning when the sun hit right. Now, under gray afternoon clouds, everything looked washed out and cold. "I'll be in the stairwell," Adrian said. "Marcus is positioned on the 38th floor with the receiver. My other people are covering the street exits. You're not alone in this." "I know." Mara's voice was steadier than she felt. "If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. If it does, get Danny somewhere safe. Somewhere Celeste can't find him. Promise me." Adrian's expression softened marginally. "I promise." He disappeared into the stairwell. Mara was alone on the observation deck, surrounded by windows and silence and the weight of every choice that had led her here. She checked her watch. 2:58. At exactly 3 p.m., the elevator dinged. Celeste Armand stepped out. She looked immaculate as always, tailored black pantsuit, auburn hair perfectly styled, minimal makeup that somehow made her look both powerful and vulnerable. She carried a small clutch purse and wore heels that clicked against the concrete floor like a countdown. "Mara," Celeste's smile was venom wrapped in sugar. "You look awful. Federal fugitive life not agreeing with you?" "Where's Danny?" Mara demanded. Her hand drifted toward her jacket pocket where Adrian had hidden a panic button. One press and his people would storm the deck. "Safe. For now." Celeste walked to the windows, gazing out at the city like a queen surveying her kingdom. "I have to admit, I'm impressed you lasted this long. Most people would have broken by now." "I'm not most people." Clearly, Celeste turned back to her. "So, you want to negotiate. How wonderfully naive." "I want my brother safe. You want me silent. That seems like a deal we can make." "Oh, Mara, you're already silent. That confession buried you. No one will ever believe a word you say." Celeste took a step closer. "But I suppose killing you would tie up loose ends nicely. So here's my counteroffer. You tell me where Adrian's hiding. I make Danny's death quick instead of drawn out, and you get to die knowing you tried." Mara's blood turned to ice. "You promised he'd be safe if I cooperated." "I lied." Celeste's smile widened. "Did you really think I'd let either of you live? Your witnesses, your liabilities. And I don't leave liabilities breathing. Danny's just a kid. He doesn't know anything, and he knows you're his sister. That makes him leverage. As long as he's alive, Adrian might use him to manipulate you. And as long as you're alive, you're a threat to my narrative." Celeste pulled a gun from her clutch purse. Small, efficient, deadly. "So here's how this ends. You tell me where Adrian is. I put a bullet in your head. Then I collect Danny and finish what I started. Or you refuse, I shoot you anyway, and Danny dies slow. Your choice." Mara's hand moved toward the panic button. "Don't!" Celeste's gun tracked the movement. "I've got 6 men positioned around this building. The moment Adrian or any of his people show themselves, they start shooting. And before you ask, yes, I know he's in the stairwell. Did you really think I'd come here without backup?" The panic button suddenly felt like a trap instead of a lifeline. If Mara pressed it, Adrian would walk into an ambush. His people would die, and Danny would still be at Celeste's mercy. "How long have you known?" Mara asked, stalling. "Since you sent the message. It was too perfect, too desperate. Adrian would never let you negotiate alone." Celeste shook her head mockingly. "You're amateurs playing a professional's game. This was over before it started." "Then why come at all?" "Because I wanted to see your face when you realized you'd lost." Celeste's expression turned cold, empty of anything human. "I wanted to watch hope die in your eyes. Call it a personal indulgence." In the stairwell, Adrian's voice crackled through the hidden earpiece Mara wore. "She's stalling. She wants you to panic. Don't give her the satisfaction." But Mara's panic was already rising, threatening to choke her. She'd walked into a trap thinking she was setting one. Celeste had been 3 steps ahead the entire time. "Last chance," Celeste said, raising the gun. "Where's Adrian?" "Right here," Adrian said, emerging from the stairwell with his own weapon drawn. Celeste didn't flinch. "Predictable. Shoot me and my people kill Mara. Kill them and I kill Mara. Either way, she dies. So do you eventually. The only variable is how many people die with you." "There's always another variable," Adrian said. "You just haven't seen it yet." Celeste laughed. "What variable? Your pathetic attempt to clone my burner phone? I ditched that device an hour ago. Or maybe you mean the counter-narrative you released this morning. It's already being debunked by my federal contacts. By tonight, it'll be forgotten, and you'll be confirmed as conspiracy theorists." Mara's stomach dropped. The burner phone plan was dead. Their only chance at tracking Celeste to Vincent, gone. "You've lost," Celeste continued. "Both of you. My father's empire will absorb what's left of yours, Adrian. Your name will be synonymous with criminal scum. And Mara Vance will be remembered as the stupid waitress who threw her life away for nothing." "Not for nothing," Mara said quietly. "Excuse me? I saved his life." Mara gestured to Adrian. "That night at the restaurant, I could have stayed quiet, stayed invisible. But I chose to act. I chose to matter. That's more than you've ever been, a real person making real choices instead of a weapon your father programmed." Celeste's composure cracked for just a second, a flash of rage in her eyes. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're so desperate for his approval you've sacrificed everything that could have made you human." Mara took a step forward, despite the gun pointed at her. "I know you've never made a choice that wasn't calculated to serve his empire. I know you're going to die alone because you've never been anything but a tool. Shut up. And I know," Mara took another step, "that you're terrified I'm right. That all of this, all the manipulation and murder and lies, is just you begging a man who trained you like a dog to finally tell you you're good enough." Celeste's hand trembled. "I said shut up. Make me." The gun fired. Mara had been expecting it. She'd seen the micro-expression, the tightening of Celeste's finger on the trigger. She threw herself sideways toward the windows as the bullet tore through the space where her head had been a split second earlier. Adrian's weapon roared in response. Celeste dove behind a support pillar, returning fire. Glass exploded as bullets found windows. Mara scrambled behind a decorative planter, the only cover on the entire deck. "Marcus, now!" Adrian shouted into his comm. The elevator dinged. Marcus burst out with 2 of Adrian's people, weapons drawn. They opened fire on Celeste's position, forcing her to stay pinned behind the pillar. "East stairwell!" one of Adrian's people yelled. "2 shooters incoming!" More gunfire erupted. The observation deck became a war zone, bullets ricocheting off concrete and glass, spent casings clinking against the floor. Mara pressed herself flat behind the planter, her ears ringing. Through the chaos, she saw Celeste moving, not toward the elevator, but toward the windows. She was saying something into a phone or comm device, her face twisted with fury. Then the world exploded. The windows behind Mara shattered inward as something detonated on the floor below, a controlled explosion that sent a shockwave rippling through the building. The observation deck tilted sickeningly. Structural supports groaned. "She's bringing the building down!" Marcus screamed. "We need to evacuate now!" But Celeste was already gone, disappearing into the stairwell as the building began its death rattle. Adrian grabbed Mara, hauling her toward the elevator. One of his people was down, blood pooling beneath him. The other was firing into the stairwell, covering their retreat. They piled into the elevator. Marcus hammered the button for the ground floor. The elevator lurched downward just as another explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered. The cables screamed. "She rigged the whole thing," Adrian said, his voice tight. "She was never planning to negotiate. She was planning to bury us in the rubble." The elevator dropped, not smoothly, but in a gut-wrenching freefall that lasted 3 horrible seconds before the emergency brakes caught. They jerked to a stop between floors. "Fuck!" Marcus punched the control panel. "We're stuck!" Another explosion, closer this time. The building was coming apart floor by floor, a controlled demolition designed to look like a structural failure. By the time rescue crews arrived, there'd be nothing left but debris and bodies. "The hatch!" Adrian said, pointing to the ceiling panel. They pried it open. Adrian boosted Mara up first, then Marcus. He followed, muscles straining. Above them, the elevator shaft stretched into darkness. Below, cables swayed and groaned. "We climb," Adrian ordered. 38th floor. There's a maintenance door." They climbed, hand over hand, finding purchase on the maintenance ladder embedded in the shaft wall. Mara's arms screamed. Her hands were slick with sweat. Below them, the elevator finally gave up and plummeted, the crash echoing up the shaft like thunder. Another explosion shook the building. Mara's grip slipped. She hung by one hand, her feet dangling over empty space and certain death. Adrian's hand clamped around her wrist. "I've got you." He hauled her back to the ladder. They kept climbing. Mara's lungs burned. Her vision swam. But she climbed because the alternative was falling, and she refused to give Celeste that satisfaction. They reached the 38th floor. Marcus kicked open the maintenance door, and they tumbled into a hallway filled with smoke. Emergency alarms shrieked. The building was evacuating, workers fleeing down stairwells, security guards shouting orders. "We blend in," Adrian said. "Act panicked, follow the crowd." They joined the exodus, just 3 more terrified people fleeing a catastrophe. Down 38 flights of stairs, packed shoulder to shoulder with strangers. The smoke got thicker, the heat intensified. Somewhere above them, the building continued its collapse, floor by floor, exactly as Celeste had planned. They burst onto the street with hundreds of others. Emergency vehicles screamed toward the scene, news helicopters circled overhead. And standing across the street, watching the building burn with a small, satisfied smile, Celeste Armand, playing the role of shocked witness to perfection. She saw them emerge from the crowd. Her smile widened. She raised her phone, took a photo, then disappeared into the gathering crowd of onlookers. "She documented it," Mara said numbly. "She's going to tell everyone we died in there." "Or that we caused it," Adrian said grimly. "Desperate fugitives destroying evidence, killing innocent people. The narrative writes itself." They melted into the crowd, moving away from the building before someone recognized them. Mara's legs felt like rubber. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. They'd almost died. They would have died if Marcus hadn't breached the elevator when he did. And they'd gained nothing. No proof. No leverage. No victory. Just survival. They made it back to the safe house by nightfall. Marcus immediately started scanning news feeds. The story was already breaking. Catastrophic structural failure at the Meridian building, possibly accelerated by fugitive Adrian Moreau and his accomplice Mara Vance, who were believed to be inside the building conducting illegal activities when it collapsed. Casualties were still being counted. "She blamed us for the deaths," Marcus said quietly. 7 people were killed in the collapse, workers who were still in the building, and the media is reporting you caused it. Mara stared at the screen. 7 people. Dead because Celeste needed to eliminate her enemies and maintain her narrative. 7 families destroyed. "I'm done," Mara said. Adrian looked up sharply. "What?" "I'm done playing by rules. Done trying to expose the truth through evidence and hope people believe us. Done pretending there's a righteous path through this." Mara's voice was hollow, scraped raw. Celeste was right about one thing. We're amateurs. We've been fighting a war with one hand tied behind our backs while she burns down buildings and murders witnesses without hesitation. "Mara, Danny's still out there, still in danger, and we're no closer to stopping Vincent or Celeste than we were a week ago." Mara met Adrian's gaze. "So, I'm asking you straight, what's plan B, the real one? The one where we stop pretending we're the good guys and start acting like the survivors we need to be?" Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to a locked cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a file folder. "Vincent's daughter isn't his only child," he said quietly. "He has a son, Marcus Calabrese. Different mother, raised separately, kept out of the public eye. Marcus is Vincent's true heir, not Celeste. She's the weapon. Marcus is the successor." "How do you know this?" Mara asked. "Because I've known about Marcus for 3 years. I've had people watching him, documenting his movements, building leverage." Adrian opened the folder, showed her photos of a man in his early 30s, handsome, cold-eyed, dangerous. "If we can't get to Vincent, we get to Marcus. We use him as bait. We force Vincent into the open. And then," Mara's voice was steady despite the horror of what she was hearing, "and then we kill him." Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless. "No arrest. No trial. No chance for Celeste to spin it. We put a bullet in Vincent Armand, and we end this war the only way wars actually end, with blood." Mara looked at the photos. Marcus Calabrese stared back at her from frozen moments, entering a nightclub, leaving a restaurant, standing on a yacht. He looked nothing like Celeste. Where she was elegant and controlled, he radiated brutal efficiency. "This is murder," Mara said. "Yes. We're talking about becoming killers. Crossing a line we can't uncross." "Yes." Mara thought about Danny, traumatized and terrified. She thought about the 7 people who died today because Celeste needed to maintain her narrative. She thought about Chen, executed in an alley. She thought about every innocent person whose life had been destroyed by Vincent's empire while the legal system failed to stop him. "Okay," she said. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. "You understand what you're agreeing to?" "I understand that the person I was, the waitress who kept her head down and pretended not to see, she's dead. She died in that restaurant when I slipped you that note." Mara's voice hardened. "The person I am now is someone who'll do whatever it takes to protect her brother and stop the people who think they can destroy lives without consequences. So yes, I understand, and yes, I'm in. There's no coming back from this. I don't want to come back." Mara looked at the folder, at Marcus Calabrese's cold eyes. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. We grab Marcus, we use him to draw Vincent out, and we end this." Adrian closed the folder. "But first, we need to move Danny somewhere even more secure. If Celeste finds out what we're planning, she'll escalate. She'll go after him just to hurt you. Where can we send him that's safer than here?" Adrian pulled out his phone, made a call. "It's me. I need the offshore option. Immediate extraction." A pause. "Yes. The kid. Full security detail, no electronic footprint." Another pause. "I don't care what it costs. Make it happen." He ended the call. "I have a property in the Caribbean, private island, minimal staff. No extradition treaties. Danny leaves tonight. He'll be safe there while we handle Vincent." "He'll hate me for this," Mara said quietly. "He'll be alive to hate you. That's what matters." They spent the next hour preparing Danny for transport. He fought them at first, demanded answers, accused Mara of lying, threatened to run. But when Adrian showed him the news footage of the Meridian building collapse, when he explained that people were actively trying to kill his sister, Danny's resistance crumbled into terror. "How long?" Danny asked, his voice small. "A week. Maybe 2. Mara hugged him tight. "I promise I'll come get you as soon as it's safe." "What if you don't come back?" "Then Adrian will take care of you. You'll have money, protection, everything you need." Mara pulled back, looked him in the eyes. "But I will come back, I swear it." Danny nodded, not believing her but wanting to. They put him in a car with 3 of Adrian's most trusted people. Mara watched until the taillights disappeared into the night. Then she turned to Adrian. "Now what?" "Now we become monsters," he said. "Because that's the only language Vincent Armand understands." They spent the rest of the night planning. Marcus Calabrese lived in a penthouse in the warehouse district. Ironic, given that was where Vesper House had been. He frequented 3 nightclubs, always with security, always with women, always projecting the image of a playboy rather than a crime lord's heir. "He's not like Celeste," Adrian explained. "He's arrogant, overconfident, thinks his father's reputation makes him untouchable. That's his weakness." "So we exploit it," Mara said. "We make him think he's hunting us when we're actually hunting him." They crafted a trap, leaked information through channels they knew Marcus monitored, false intel that Adrian would be at a specific location, vulnerable and alone. The bait was irresistible, a chance to kill his father's enemy and claim glory. "He'll bring people," Marcus warned. "At least 6, probably more." "Let him," Adrian said. "We'll bring more." The trap was set for the following night. An abandoned warehouse, because of course it was, Mara thought darkly, on the waterfront. Adrian positioned shooters on every approach. He equipped Mara with body armor and a weapon she barely knew how to use. "Point and pull the trigger," he instructed. "Don't think, just survive." "That's been the plan all along," Mara said. They waited in the warehouse as midnight approached. The space was cavernous, empty, echoing with every breath. Shipping containers stacked like tombstones. Rusted machinery creating shadows that looked like crouching monsters. Headlights cut through the darkness. 3 vehicles. Doors opened. Men emerged, 8 of them, armed, spreading out tactically. And in the center, Marcus Calabrese, wearing a leather jacket and a smile that promised violence. "Adrian Moreau," he called out, his voice echoing. "I know you're here. Come out and let's talk like civilized people." Adrian stepped into the light, hands visible, weapon holstered. "I'm here. Let's talk." Marcus laughed. "You've got balls, I'll give you that. My sister wants you dead. My father wants you broken. But me?" He spread his arms. "I just want to know what made you think you could survive this long against my family." "Luck, stubbornness, better security than you have." Adrian's voice was calm, conversational. "Speaking of which, your left flank's exposed. Might want to adjust." Marcus's smile faltered. He glanced left, saw Adrian's people emerging from behind shipping containers, weapons trained on his crew. "Ambush," Marcus said, sounding more impressed than worried. "Clever. But you're outnumbered. My father has an army. You have what, a dozen people? 20? I don't need an army. I just need you." Adrian's hand moved to his weapon. "Tell me where Vincent is and you walk out of here alive. Refuse, and your father loses his heir." "You won't kill me. You're not a murderer, Adrian. That's always been your weakness. You have lines you won't cross." "I did," Adrian admitted. "But that was before your sister destroyed my life and tried to kill everyone I care about. Now?" He drew his weapon. "Now I don't have lines anymore." The gunfight erupted faster than thought, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness, bullets tearing through metal and flesh. Mara dropped behind a shipping container, her ears ringing, her heart slamming against her ribs. This wasn't like the observation deck. This was chaos, pure and uncontrolled. Bodies fell, screams cut through the noise. The smell of gunpowder and blood filled the air. Mara saw Marcus running, not away, but toward a secondary exit. She didn't think. She just moved. Sprinting after him, her weapon heavy in her hands, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Marcus burst through a side door. Mara followed. They were in an alley now, the warehouse behind them still echoing with gunfire. Marcus turned, saw her, raised his weapon. Mara fired first. The recoil nearly knocked her backwards. The bullet went wide, hitting the wall beside Marcus's head. He fired back. 3 shots that tore through the air where Mara had been standing before she threw herself behind a dumpster. "You're the waitress," Marcus called out, laughing. "Celeste's obsessed with you. Says you're dangerous, but you can't even shoot straight." Mara's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the gun. She wasn't a killer. She wasn't trained for this. She was a waitress who'd stumbled into a war and was now crouching in an alley with a weapon she didn't know how to use, facing a man who'd been raised to kill. This was insane. This was suicide. Marcus emerged from cover, advancing on her position. "Come out! Let's end this. I'll make it quick." Mara closed her eyes. Thought about Danny, safe on an island. Thought about every choice that had led her here. Thought about the person she used to be and the person she'd had to become. Then she stood up, weapon raised, and fired. This time, the bullet found its mark. Marcus dropped, clutching his shoulder, his weapon clattering away. Mara approached slowly, her gun still trained on him. Blood seeped between his fingers. His face was twisted with pain and rage. "You shot me," he said, disbelieving. "You actually shot me." "Yeah." Mara's voice was hollow. "Funny how that works. My father's going to kill you. He's going to kill everyone you've ever known. He's going to make you watch." "Where is he?" Mara demanded. "Where's Vincent?" Marcus laughed. A wet, painful sound. "You think I'll tell you? You think you can torture it out of me? I'm Vincent Armand's son. I was raised on pain. You can't break me." "I don't need to break you." Mara pressed the gun against his wounded shoulder. He screamed. "I just need you scared enough to realize you're not untouchable. Where is Vincent?" "Celeste knows," Marcus gasped out. "She's the only one who knows his current location. He moves every 48 hours, different properties, different identities. Only Celeste has the schedule. Only she can reach him directly." Mara's blood ran cold. "Then we're back to square one." "Yeah." Marcus's smile was pained but genuine. "You're fucked. My sister's smarter than you, more ruthless than you, and she's already 3 moves ahead. You might have caught me, but you'll never catch her, and without her, you'll never find my father." Adrian appeared in the alley entrance, weapon drawn. "Mara, you good?" "Yeah, I got him." Mara looked at Marcus. but he says only Celeste knows where Vincent is. Adrian's jaw tightened. He walked over, looked down at Marcus. That true? Every word. You want Vincent? You'll have to go through Celeste, and you can't touch her without the feds coming down on you. Marcus coughed, blood flecking his lips. You've lost, Moreau. Accept it with dignity. Adrian raised his weapon, pointed it at Marcus's head. Wait. Marcus's arrogance finally cracked. Wait, I can... The gunshot was deafening. Mara stumbled back, her ears ringing. Marcus Calabrese lay motionless, a hole in his forehead, his eyes staring at nothing. Jesus, Mara whispered. You killed him. Yes. Adrian's voice was flat. And now Vincent knows we're not playing games anymore. He'll either come for us directly, or he'll send Celeste. Either way, the war escalates. But we don't know where he is. We just killed his son, and we gain nothing. We gain time. Adrian holstered his weapon. Vincent will mourn. He'll be distracted, angry, irrational. That's when people make mistakes. We use that window to go after Celeste directly. How? She's surrounded by federal protection. Then we make her come to us. We take something she values, something she can't afford to lose. She doesn't value anything except her father's approval and her mission. Wrong. Adrian pulled out his phone, showed Mara a series of photos. Celeste has a younger sister, half-sister, different mother, raised in Europe. Elena Armand, 22 years old, completely innocent of the family business, studying art history in Paris. Mara felt sick. You want to kidnap an innocent woman? I want leverage. Celeste took Danny. We take Elena. We force a trade. That's not who we are. It's exactly who we are now. Adrian's composure finally cracked. We just killed a man in cold blood, Mara. We crossed every line we said we wouldn't cross. So don't lecture me about morality when we're standing over a corpse we created. The words hung in the air between them. Mara looked at Marcus's body, at the blood pooling on the dirty alley concrete, at her own hands still holding the weapon she'd used. Adrian was right. They'd already become monsters. The only question was how much further they were willing to go. If we do this, Mara said slowly, if we kidnap Elena, we can't pretend we're anything but what Celeste always said we were. Criminals, kidnappers, people who harm innocents to win. Yes, Adrian said, and there's no coming back from it. Even if we win, even if we stop Vincent and Celeste, we'll still be the people who did this. Yes. Mara looked up at the narrow strip of sky visible between buildings. Somewhere up there, stars were shining, indifferent to the horrors happening below. Somewhere, Danny was on a plane to safety, trusting his sister to come back for him. Somewhere, Celeste was celebrating another victory, confident in her invincibility. Okay, Mara said. We do it. We take Elena, we trade for Danny's permanent safety, and we make Celeste face us directly. But after this, after we win, I'm done. I walk away from all of it. Deal, Adrian said. They shook hands over the corpse of a man they'd just murdered, and the last fragments of who Mara Vance used to be crumbled into dust. What rose from those ashes was something harder, colder, something that might actually survive. Back at the safe house, Marcus was already working on tracking Elena Armand's movements. She lived in the Marais district, attended classes at the Sorbonne, spent weekends at galleries and cafes. Her social media was public, her schedule predictable. She's an easy target, Marcus said quietly. No security, no awareness of danger. We could grab her in 48 hours. Do it, Adrian ordered. Boss, you understand what this means? Vincent will declare total war. Every resource he has, every ally, every favor, he'll spend it all to get her back. Let him. I'm tired of waiting for them to make moves. We make the move. We take Elena, we draw them out, and we end this. Mara watched Marcus work, her mind distant. She kept seeing Marcus Calabrese's eyes, the moment the arrogance died and the fear took over. The moment he realized he wasn't untouchable. The moment before Adrian pulled the trigger. She'd shot him first. She'd drawn blood. But Adrian had done the killing. Was there a difference? Did it matter? Her phone buzzed, a secure message from the team protecting Danny. Package delivered safely, no complications. Kids asking for his sister. Mara typed back, "Tell him I'll see him soon. Tell him I love him. Tell him everything's going to be okay." 3 lies in 3 sentences. She was getting good at this. Elena's leaving her apartment tomorrow at 9 a.m., Marcus announced. Classes until 3, then she's meeting friends at a cafe in the Latin Quarter. The cafe's the best opportunity. Public, but crowded. We can extract her and be gone before anyone realizes what happened. You're sending a team to Paris? Mara asked. I'm going to Paris, Adrian corrected. This needs to be done right. No civilian casualties, no mistakes. Elena gets taken, but not harmed. She's leverage, not a victim. The semantics don't change what it is. No, they don't. Adrian met her gaze. You can stay here. You don't have to be part of this specific operation. Mara thought about it. Staying behind while Adrian kidnapped an innocent woman, being complicit without being present, did that make it better? Worse? Did anything matter anymore? I'm coming with you, she said. We do this together or not at all. Why? Because if I'm going to become a monster, I'm going to own it. No half measures, no pretending my hands are clean just because I wasn't in the room when the worst parts happened. Adrian nodded slowly. All right. We leave in 4 hours. Pack light. We won't be there long. They flew private, one of the few remaining luxuries Adrian's crumbling empire could still afford. The flight took 9 hours. Mara didn't sleep. She stared out the window at clouds that looked like mountains, thinking about all the choices that had led her to a private jet heading toward Paris to kidnap a woman who'd done nothing wrong except be born into the wrong family. How had she gotten here? But she knew the answer. One choice at a time, one compromise after another, each one seeming necessary in the moment, each one taking her further from who she'd been. They landed at a private airfield outside Paris. A car was waiting. Adrian had people in Europe too, a network built over decades, loyal because Adrian paid well and treated them better than most employers in his world. The drive into the city took an hour. Mara watched Paris slide past the window. Beautiful, historic, indifferent. How many crimes had these streets witnessed over centuries? How many moral compromises justified in the name of survival or ambition or war? She wasn't unique. She was just the latest person to discover that monsters weren't born. They were made, one choice at a time. The cafe was exactly as Marcus had described. Crowded, loud, full of students and artists. Elena Armand sat at an outdoor table, sketching in a journal, a half-finished coffee beside her. She looked nothing like Celeste. Where Celeste was polished and controlled, Elena was messy and vibrant, paint-stained jeans, oversized sweater, hair in a chaotic bun. She looked happy. Mara hated that she was about to destroy that. She's alone, Adrian observed from their position across the street. Her friends haven't arrived yet. This is the window. How do we do this without causing a scene? We don't grab her here. We follow her, wait until she's in a more isolated location, then make contact. Adrian checked his watch. She'll leave in 30 minutes according to her usual pattern. She takes the metro to her apartment. We intercept her between the station and her building. They waited. Mara's heart hammered steadily, mechanically. She felt numb, disconnected, like she was watching someone else's life spiral into moral bankruptcy. Elena finished her coffee, packed up her journal, waved to someone inside the cafe. She walked toward the metro station, earbuds in, oblivious. Adrian and Mara followed at a distance. The metro was crowded, perfect cover. They boarded the same car, standing far enough away not to be noticed. Elena stood near the doors, swaying with the train's movement, lost in her music. She had no idea her half-sister's war was about to swallow her whole. They got off at her stop, followed her through the streets of the Marais. The crowds thinned. Dusk was settling over Paris, painting everything in golden light. Adrian moved first. A quick approach, a polite greeting in French. Excusez-moi, mademoiselle. I need to speak with you about your father. Elena turned, confused. My father? Who are you? That's when she saw Mara. Something in Elena's expression shifted. Recognition, maybe from photos Celeste had shown her. Her eyes widened. Wait, you're... Adrian's hand clamped over her mouth. Don't scream. We're not going to hurt you, but you're coming with us. Elena struggled. Adrian was stronger. He pulled her into an alley, Mara blocking the entrance in case anyone walked past. Elena's eyes were wild with terror. We're sorry, Mara said, and meant it. But your sister took someone we love. This is the only way to get him back. Recognition turned to horrified understanding. Elena knew about Celeste's mission, maybe not the details, but enough. She stopped struggling. Celeste did this, she said, muffled against Adrian's hand. He removed it slowly. Yes. I told her this would happen. I told her the war would hurt innocent people. Elena's voice was shaking but steady. She didn't care. She never cares. You're not close, Mara observed. We're half-sisters who were raised on different continents by a father who sees children as assets. Elena looked between them. I know what she is. I know what he is. I've spent my whole life trying to escape it. Then you understand why we need you, Adrian said. To trade me for your loved one. Yes, I understand. Elena's voice hardened. But you should know, Vincent doesn't care about me. He barely remembers I exist, and Celeste's never said more than 10 words to me in her life. Taking me won't give you the leverage you think it will. Mara's stomach dropped. You're lying. You're his daughter. I'm the daughter of a mistress he kept in Paris 20 years ago. I'm a quarterly allowance in a trust fund, nothing more. Elena met Mara's gaze. They won't trade anything for me. I'm not valuable enough. Celeste will care, Adrian insisted. She's your sister. Celeste cares about one thing, Vincent's approval. If trading me helps her mission, she'll do it. If it doesn't, she'll let me die. Elena's eyes were dry, her voice certain. You've made a mistake. I can't give you what you need. Mara looked at Adrian, saw the same realization dawning on his face. They'd gambled everything on leverage that didn't exist, and somewhere Celeste was probably laughing. The Paris alley smelled like rain and regret. Elena Armand stood between them, her words still echoing like a death sentence. You've made a mistake. I can't give you what you need. Mara felt the world tilt. All of it. The murder, the moral compromises, the flight across an ocean to kidnap an innocent woman, all of it for leverage that didn't exist. Her hand started shaking. Not from fear this time, from rage so pure it burned through the numbness she'd been carrying like armor. You're lying, Mara said, her voice low and dangerous. You have to be lying. Nobody's that disposable to their own family. Elena's laugh was bitter. You don't know Vincent Armand. You don't know what it's like to be born into his world as anything less than essential. I'm a loose end, a quarterly financial obligation, the daughter he acknowledges on paper and ignores everywhere else. Adrian's grip on Elena loosened slightly. Celeste has to care. Your blood. Celeste cares about winning, about being Daddy's perfect weapon. Elena pulled free, stepped back. She didn't run, didn't scream, just stood there with her paint-stained hands and her sad, knowing eyes. If you wanted real leverage, you should have grabbed someone who matters to them, someone Vincent actually values. But those people are ghosts. They don't exist in his world for precisely this reason. Mara's mind raced. They'd flown halfway around the world. They'd crossed the final line. And it was all for nothing. Worse than nothing, it was a mistake that would accelerate Celeste's timeline, enrage Vincent, and leave them more exposed than ever. We can't let her go, Adrian said quietly. Elena heard. Her composure cracked. What? If we release you, you'll tell Celeste we were here. You'll warn Vincent. We lose the element of surprise. Adrian's voice was flat, mechanical. We have to keep you contained until this is over. Contained? Elena's voice rose. You mean imprisoned? You mean kidnapped? You're going to lock me up because your plan failed? Yes, Adrian said simply. No. Mara stepped between them. We're not doing this. We made a mistake. We fix it by letting her go and finding another way. There is no other way. Adrian's control finally shattered. Don't you get it? Marcus is dead. Celeste knows we're escalating. Vincent's going to come for us with everything he has. We need leverage, or we need a miracle, and I'm fresh out of miracles. So we become kidnappers of innocent women? That's the plan? Mara's voice was steel. I've crossed a lot of lines, Adrian. I've shot a man. I've helped plan a murder. I've become someone I don't recognize, but I won't do this. Elena's right. She's not valuable to them. Keeping her accomplishes nothing except making us exactly what Celeste says we are. We're already what she says we are, Adrian said coldly. We became that the moment I pulled the trigger on Marcus. This is just accepting reality. Elena was backing away slowly, her eyes darting between them like she was watching her fate being decided by strangers. I could help you, she said suddenly. They both looked at her. Help us how? Mara asked. I don't know where Vincent is, but I know someone who might. Elena's words came faster, desperate. My mother, Vincent's former mistress. He cut her off financially years ago, but they still have contact. He sends her money sometimes, messages on holidays. She keeps records of everything, dates, amounts, locations the transfers originated from. If you can find the pattern, maybe you can track him. Why would you help us? Adrian's voice was suspicious. We just tried to kidnap you. Because fuck Vincent and fuck Celeste, Elena's voice turned fierce. They ruined my mother's life. They treat me like an embarrassment, and they've spent decades destroying people while pretending to be legitimate. If you can actually stop them, I'll help however I can. Mara studied Elena's face, saw genuine hatred there, genuine pain, the kind that came from being discarded by people who were supposed to love you. Where's your mother? Mara asked. Lyon, 2 hours south by train. Elena pulled out her phone. I can call her, tell her I'm bringing friends who need to see her records. She'll cooperate. She hates Vincent as much as I do. Adrian and Mara exchanged glances. It could be a trap. Elena could be lying, stalling, planning to call Celeste the moment they turned their backs. Or she could be telling the truth, a damaged woman offering an olive branch to the people who'd threatened her because destroying her father mattered more than her own safety. We verify first, Adrian decided. Call your mother. We listen. If anything sounds wrong, the call ends, and we disappear. Elena nodded, her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed. The phone rang twice before a woman answered in French. Elena spoke rapidly, explaining she was bringing friends, that they needed to see the records, that it was urgent. The conversation lasted 90 seconds. Elena ended the call. She'll see us, tonight, but she wants assurances you won't hurt me. We won't, Mara said before Adrian could answer. You have my word. The word of a fugitive. Elena's smile was humorless, but I guess that's all I've got. They took the next train to Lyon. The three of them sat in a private compartment, tense silence filling the space between stations. Mara watched the French countryside blur past the window. Vineyards and villages, peaceful and oblivious. 2 hours ago, she'd been ready to kidnap this woman. Now they were reluctant allies bound by mutual hatred of the same enemy. War made strange companions. Elena's mother lived in a small apartment near the old town. Tasteful but modest. The kind of place someone lived when the money had run out, but the pride remained. Isabelle Armand was 50-something, elegant, with Elena's eyes and a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. She let them in without a word. Poured wine none of them touched. Then she went to a bedroom and returned with 3 thick binders. 17 years of records, Isabelle said in accented English. Every payment Vincent sent, every message, every crumb he threw at us to keep us quiet and distant. She dropped the binders on the coffee table like evidence at a trial. I kept everything because I knew someday someone would need proof that Vincent Armand is exactly the monster everyone whispers about. Mara opened the first binder. Bank transfers, wire receipts, dates and amounts meticulously cataloged. The earliest entries were from 2 decades ago, large sums, monthly, consistent. Then they became sporadic, smaller. Eventually reduced to quarterly payments barely enough to cover rent. But every transaction had an originating location. Adrian pulled out his phone, started photographing pages. Marcus, you seen this? Marcus's voice crackled through the speaker. Yeah, give me 30 minutes to analyze the pattern. They waited. Isabelle watched them with the intensity of someone who'd been waiting years for this moment. Elena sat beside her mother, holding her hand. Why now? Isabelle asked quietly. What did Vincent do that finally made someone come after him? He raised a daughter to be a weapon, Mara said. She destroyed my life, threatened my brother, killed innocent people to maintain a narrative, and she did it all to please him. Isabelle's expression darkened. Celeste, yes, I met her once, years ago. She was 14. Vincent brought her to Paris for a week. She looked at Elena like Elena was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Isabelle's grip tightened on her daughter's hand. I told Vincent then that he was creating a monster. He laughed, said monsters were useful in his business. He was right, Adrian said grimly. Celeste's the most dangerous person I've ever faced. She's brilliant, ruthless, and completely devoid of empathy. She's what you get when you raise a child as a tool instead of a person. And you want to kill her father, Isabelle said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Good. Isabel stood, walked to a cabinet, pulled out an old photograph. She handed it to Mara. The image showed a younger Isabel, radiant and happy, standing beside Vincent Armand. He was handsome in that dangerous way certain men were. Sharp features, cold eyes, the kind of smile that promised excitement and delivered ruin. That was taken the night I got pregnant with Elena, Isabel said. I thought I was special. Thought Vincent loved me. It took me 3 years to understand I was just another asset he'd acquired and would discard the moment I became inconvenient. She pointed to the photograph. Look at his eyes. Really look. That's not love. That's ownership. He looked at me the same way he looked at his cars, his properties, his empire. Everything exists to serve him. Mara studied the photograph. Isabel was right. Vincent's smile never reached his eyes. Even in this moment of supposed intimacy, he looked calculating, distant, already planning his exit. Marcus's voice cut through the silence. I've got a pattern. Vincent's been using a network of shell accounts, but there's a hub, a primary location where most transfers originate or route through. It's in the city, your city, an offshore banking firm called Meridian Financial. Mara's blood ran cold. Meridian, like the building Celeste destroyed. Probably not a coincidence, Marcus said. Vincent owns the Meridian building through a series of shell companies, or owned, past tense now. But Meridian Financial is still operational, still processing his transactions. If we can access their records, we can find his current location. Meridian Financial will have security, Adrian said. Armed guards, encrypted servers, vault-level protection for their client data. So we break in, Mara said. Just like that? Walk into a fortress and steal records from one of the most powerful crime lords in the country. You have a better idea? Adrian was silent for a moment. Then he smiled, cold, predatory. Actually, I do. We don't break in. We get invited in. 4 hours later, they were back on a plane heading home. Elena had insisted on coming with them. This is my fight too, she'd said when Adrian argued against it. Vincent abandoned me. Celeste treats me like trash, and my mother spent 20 years living in fear of what they might do if she spoke up. I'm done being a victim of their choices. So now there were 3 of them. A crime lord trying to save what remained of his empire. A waitress who'd become a fugitive and a killer. And the discarded daughter of the man they were hunting. Mara should have felt something. Hope, maybe, or determination. Instead, she felt hollow. Every choice kept pulling her deeper into a darkness she wasn't sure she'd survive. But Danny was still out there, still in danger as long as Vincent and Celeste breathed. So she'd keep going, keep becoming whatever she needed to be, even if that meant becoming unrecognizable. They landed just before dawn. Marcus met them at the safe house with updates that turned Mara's exhaustion into adrenaline. Celeste's holding a press conference at noon, Marcus said, pulling up news feeds. She's announcing a reward for information leading to your capture, $1 million, and she's doing it from the federal building with full FBI backing. She's escalating, Adrian said. Gets better. Or worse, depending on perspective. Vincent issued a statement through his lawyers. Marcus Calabrese's death is being called a targeted assassination by Adrian Moreau. There's a $5 million bounty on your head now. Every 2-bit mercenary and bounty hunter in the country is going to be looking for you. Perfect, Adrian said dryly. Anything else? Yeah, someone leaked Danny's location. Mara's world stopped. What? The team guarding him in the Caribbean reported suspicious activity around the island. Boats circling, drones overhead. Someone knows he's there. Marcus looked grim. They're moving him to a secondary location, but it's only a matter of time before Vincent's people find him again. How did they find him in the first place? Mara demanded, her voice rising. You said that location was secure. It was his... Someone on the inside must have talked. Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. Or someone got access to our communication systems. A mole, Adrian said quietly. Someone in my organization is feeding information to Vincent. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. If there was a traitor in Adrian's inner circle, nothing was safe. Not their plans, not their locations, not Danny. Mara felt panic clawing up her throat. We need to get to Danny, now, before they do. If we go after him, we expose ourselves. Adrian countered. Vincent's probably counting on that. He'll have people watching, waiting for us to make that exact move. I don't care. He's my brother. And he's alive right now because my people are protecting him. If we rush in without a plan, we all die and Danny ends up in Celeste's hands anyway. Mara wanted to scream, wanted to hit something, wanted to tear down the world until Danny was safe and everyone who'd threatened him was dead. But Adrian was right. Emotional decisions got people killed. She'd learned that the hard way. Then we need to end this, Mara said, forcing her voice steady. Today. We hit Meridian Financial, we get Vincent's location, and we finish him before he can move against Danny. Meridian Financial's security is...
I don't care how good their security is. Mara slammed her hand on the table. Every second we wait is another second Danny's in danger. So either we move now, or I go alone and you can explain to whatever's left of me why we waited. Elena spoke up from the corner where she'd been quietly observing. There might be another way. A cleaner way. They turned to her.
Meridian Financial has a client appreciation event once a quarter. Wine, cheese, networking. I went once with my mother years ago when Vincent was still pretending we mattered. Elena pulled out her phone, searched. The next one's tonight. Invitation only, but they're not checking identification carefully. It's all about wealth and connections. If we can get in, we can access their systems from the inside while everyone's distracted by free champagne. We? Adrian raised an eyebrow. I'm still technically a Armand. I can get an invitation if I make the right calls. Elena's voice was steady. You need someone they won't immediately flag as suspicious. Someone who belongs in that world. That's me. It's too dangerous, Mara said. If Celeste finds out you're helping us, she already wants me dead by association. Might as well make it count. Elena met Mara's gaze. I told you, this is my fight too. Let me help. Adrian considered it. You'd be bait. A distraction while Marcus hacks their systems remotely, and I extract the data physically. If anything goes wrong, you'd be exposed to Vincent's people. I've been exposed to Vincent's people my whole life. At least this time I'd be choosing the fight. Elena's jaw set. I can do this. I want to do this. Mara saw herself in Elena's determination. The need to matter. To fight back against people who'd made you feel small. To reclaim agency in a world that had stolen it. Okay, Mara said. We do it together. The plan came together in 6 frantic hours. Elena would attend the event as herself, playing the role of Vincent's estranged daughter, trying to reconnect with his business world. Her presence would create confusion. Vincent's people would recognize the name but not know what to make of her sudden appearance. That confusion would buy time. Marcus would be positioned outside in a surveillance van, waiting for Elena to get close enough to the server room to plant a wireless tap. Once the tap was active, he'd hack in and download everything, client records, transaction histories, Vincent's entire financial footprint. Adrian and Mara would be inside posing as a wealthy couple looking to establish offshore accounts. Just 2 more rich people hiding money from taxes and ex-spouses. They'd provide backup if Elena ran into trouble and secure a physical exit if things went sideways. It was a terrible plan with 1,000 ways to fail. It was also the only plan they had. By evening, they were ready. Elena wore a designer dress that Isabel had shipped overnight. Black, elegant, expensive enough to belong. Adrian and Mara were dressed to match the part. Him in a tailored suit that made him look more like a tech billionaire than a crime lord. Her in a dress that cost more than 3 months of her old salary and felt like wearing someone else's skin. You look terrified, Adrian said as they rode the elevator up to Meridian Financial's event space on the 20th floor. I am terrified. I'm a waitress pretending to be rich while trying to rob a company that launders money for the man who wants me dead. Mara's hands were clammy despite the air conditioning. Terrified seems appropriate. Channel it. Rich people are terrified all the time, afraid of losing money, losing status, losing relevance. Fear makes you blend in. The elevator doors opened onto opulence. The event space was all glass and chrome, panoramic city views, soft lighting that made everyone look wealthy and important. Servers circulated with champagne and canapes that probably cost more per bite than Mara used to make per hour. 100 people milled about, the kind of crowd where everyone looked vaguely criminal but claimed to be in import-export or international consulting. The kind of party where nobody asked too many questions because everyone had something to hide. Elena was already there, working the room with practiced ease. She caught Mara's eye across the space, gave an almost imperceptible nod. Phase 1 complete. She was in. Adrian took 2 champagne flutes from a passing server, handed one to Mara. We circulate. Look interested. Wait for Elena's signal that she's found the server room. They drifted through conversations, meaningless small talk about markets and properties, and the inconvenience of capital gains taxes. Mara smiled and nodded and played the role of arm candy for a man with too much money and too few ethics. Every moment felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of knives. Then she saw him. Across the room, talking to a cluster of men in expensive suits, was Vincent Armand. He shouldn't have been there. He never appeared in public. He operated through proxies and shell companies and layers of deniability. But there he was, older than the photograph Isabel had shown them, grayer but unmistakable. The same cold eyes, the same predatory smile. Mara's breath caught. Adrian? He followed her gaze. His entire body went rigid. That's impossible. But it's him.
Vincent was laughing at something, completely at ease, surrounded by people who probably had no idea they were drinking champagne with one of the most dangerous men in the country. Or maybe they knew exactly who he was. Maybe that's why they were there. Why would he risk a public appearance? Mara whispered. He wouldn't. Unless... Adrian's expression darkened. Unless he knows we're here. Unless this whole thing is a trap.
Marcus's voice crackled through their concealed earpieces. Guys, we've got a problem. I'm seeing unusual security activity. Extra guards being positioned at exits. Someone's locking down the building. Abort, Adrian said immediately. Elena, get out. Now. But Elena wasn't moving. She was frozen across the room, staring at Vincent with an expression of pure hatred. Her father, the man who'd discarded her, forgotten her, treated her as an embarrassment, was standing 30 feet away, living proof that she'd never mattered. Elena, move! Mara hissed into her concealed microphone. Elena moved, but not toward the exit, toward Vincent. No, Mara breathed. No, no, no. Elena was crossing the room with determined strides, her face a mask of fury and pain. People turned to look. Vincent noticed. His expression shifted from polite interest to confused recognition. Elena? His voice carried across the suddenly quiet room. What are you doing here? Facing you. Elena's voice shook but held. For once in my pathetic life, I'm looking you in the eye and telling you what you are. A monster. A user. A man who destroys everything he touches and calls it business. The room went silent. 100 people watching family drama unfold like a spectator sport. Vincent's smile was indulgent, patronizing. You're upset. I understand. We should discuss this privately. Fuck your privately. Elena's voice rose. You abandoned me. You threw my mother away like garbage. You treated me like an embarrassing mistake instead of your daughter. And for what? So you could build an empire on blood and lies? So your real daughter could become a weapon? Vincent's expression hardened. That's enough. No, it's not nearly enough. Elena's hands were shaking. I came here to help the people you're trying to destroy, the people who are fighting back against you and Celeste, and I did it because watching you fail matters more to me than my own safety. Understanding dawned on Vincent's face. Then rage. You brought them here. Yes. Vincent's hand moved to his jacket. Adrian was already drawing his concealed weapon. The room erupted into chaos, screams, people diving for cover, guards pulling guns. Mara grabbed the nearest person, a woman in pearls, and used her as a shield while dropping behind a decorative planter. Bullets shredded the air above her head. Glass exploded. Someone was screaming. Through the chaos, Mara saw Elena standing perfectly still in the center of the room, facing her father. Vincent had his gun pointed at her, his own daughter. His finger was on the trigger. You've made a mistake, Vincent said coldly. I've made a choice, Elena corrected. First real one of my life. Mara didn't think. She ran. Sprinting across the open floor, tackling Elena to the ground as Vincent fired. The bullet passed through the space where Elena's head had been a heartbeat earlier. They hit the ground hard. Mara's shoulder screamed in protest. She dragged Elena behind an overturned table as more gunfire erupted. Adrian was returning fire, providing cover. Marcus was shouting something through the earpiece Mara could barely hear over the chaos. "You saved me!" Elena gasped, blood trickling from where she'd hit her head on the fall. "Call it even for Lyon," Mara said. The gunfight was brutal and brief. Adrian's people breached the building. They'd been positioned as backup and came flooding in the moment shots were fired. Vincent's guards were good, but outnumbered. Bodies hit the floor. The air reeked of gunpowder and fear. Vincent himself was retreating toward a private elevator, surrounded by his remaining security. Adrian tried to pursue, but got pinned down by covering fire. "He's escaping!" Mara shouted. "Let him!" Adrian returned fire, dropping one of Vincent's guards. "We've got bigger problems." He was right. Sirens were wailing. Federal response would be here in minutes. They'd walked into Vincent's trap and barely survived. Now they had to extract before the cavalry arrived and finished what Vincent started. "East stairwell!" Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "I've got a vehicle waiting!" They ran. Mara half carrying Elena, Adrian covering their retreat. They burst into the stairwell and started descending, 20 flights at a sprint, legs burning, lungs screaming. Behind them, federal agents were flooding into the building. Ahead, Marcus had a van waiting with the engine running. They piled in. Marcus floored it before the doors were even closed. The van screeched out of the parking garage and into traffic, sirens filling the night behind them. "Everyone okay?" Marcus asked, weaving through cars. "Define okay," Mara gasped. Her shoulder was on fire where she'd hit the ground. Elena was bleeding from her head wound. Adrian had taken a bullet to his vest, cracked ribs at minimum. "Vincent got away," Adrian said, pain evident in his voice. "We had him, and he slipped through our fingers." "But we confirmed he's in the city," Marcus countered. "That's something." "That's nothing." Adrian slammed his fist against the van wall. "He knows we're on to him now. He'll disappear, change locations, burn every connection we might have used to track him." "Then we don't track him," Mara said. Everyone looked at her. "We make him come to us." "How?" Elena asked, pressing a cloth to her head wound. Mara's mind was racing, pieces clicking together with cold clarity. "Celeste, Vincent's weapon, his perfect daughter. She's what he values most. We take her, we use her as bait, and we force Vincent to come to us on our terms. Celeste's surrounded by federal protection," Adrian pointed out. "We can't just grab her off the street." "No, but we can make her come to us." Mara pulled out her phone. Her hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been in days. "We offer her what she wants most. Me. A trade. Mara Vance, willing to surrender and confess to everything in exchange for Danny's permanent safety. She'll never believe you'd trust her. She'll believe I'm desperate enough to try, especially after tonight, after Vincent almost killed his own daughter right in front of witnesses." Mara looked at Elena. "Celeste doesn't know you helped us yet, but she will soon. Vincent will tell her, and when she realizes her half-sister betrayed the family, she'll be angry, reckless. That's when people make mistakes." Adrian studied Mara's face. "You're planning something you're not telling me. I'm planning to end this." Mara met his gaze. "One way or another. Tonight." They made it back to the safe house. Marcus immediately started monitoring news feeds and police scanners. The Meridian financial shooting was already breaking news. Reports of a gunfight at an exclusive event, multiple casualties, suspects fleeing the scene. Celeste's face appeared on screen within 20 minutes, giving a statement from the federal building. "Tonight's attack was orchestrated by Adrian Moreau and his accomplice Mara Vance," Celeste said, her voice perfectly modulated between outrage and sorrow. "They're escalating, becoming more desperate and dangerous. If anyone has information about their whereabouts, please contact the FBI immediately. These people will stop at nothing." "She's good," Elena said quietly. "Even knowing she's lying, I almost believe her." "That's what makes her dangerous," Mara said. She was typing on her laptop, composing a message she knew would reach Celeste through monitored channels. But tonight she made a mistake. "What mistake?" Adrian asked. "She didn't account for Elena. Didn't know Vincent's discarded daughter would choose us over family." Mara finished typing, sent the message. In Celeste's world, loyalty to Vincent is absolute. She can't comprehend someone choosing different loyalty. That's her blind spot. The message was simple. "You want me? Let's trade. Me for Danny. Tomorrow. Dawn. The old Harbor Warehouse District. Come alone and this ends." She won't come alone, Adrian said. I know, but she'll come. That's what matters. And when she arrives with a tactical team ready to kill us all? Mara smiled. It felt wrong on her face. Cold, calculated, nothing like the smiles she used to wear when she was just a waitress trying to earn tips. Then we give her a war she can't win. They spent the rest of the night preparing. Marcus rigged the warehouse with surveillance equipment and remote-controlled charges. Adrian positioned his remaining people, fewer than he wanted, more than they probably deserved, at strategic points. Elena insisted on helping despite her head injury, so they gave her a sniper rifle and a position on a nearby rooftop with clear sightlines. You know how to shoot? Mara had asked. Vincent taught me when I was 12. Thought it would be useful bonding. Elena's smile was bitter. Turns out he was right. Just not the way he intended. As dawn approached, Mara stood in the center of the warehouse, alone. This was the endgame, the final gambit. She'd become bait, the lure to draw Celeste into a trap that might collapse on all of them. Danny's face flashed through her mind. Her baby brother, who she'd raised and protected and loved, who she'd promised to come back for. If this went wrong, he'd grow up thinking his sister was a criminal who died in a shootout. But if it went right, if they actually pulled this off, he'd be safe. Free of Vincent's shadow, free to live a life that wasn't defined by other people's violence. That was worth dying for. The sun was just starting to paint the sky gray when vehicles approached. 3 black SUVs, moving in formation. They stopped outside the warehouse. Doors opened. Celeste emerged from the center vehicle, flanked by federal agents in tactical gear. She wore all black, her hair pulled back, her expression cold and satisfied. Behind her, more agents, at least 20, all armed, all ready. Overkill for one unarmed woman. Celeste walked into the warehouse like she owned it, her agents spread out, securing positions, weapons trained on Mara. Well, Celeste said, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Here we are. The waitress who thought she could fight a war. How's that working out for you? About as well as expected, Mara replied. Her voice was steady. Her hands weren't shaking. She felt calm, the kind of calm that came from accepting what came next. Where's Danny? Safe. For now. Celeste smiled. Unlike you, you're surrounded, outgunned, and about to be arrested for terrorism, murder, and a dozen other felonies that'll keep you in prison until you're 80. If you even make it to trial. The trial I won't get because you'll make sure I have an accident in custody? Mara's voice was flat. Save the theater, Celeste. We both know how this ends. Do we? Celeste took another step forward. Because from where I'm standing, I've won. Adrian's empire is ashes. His allies have abandoned him. You're a fugitive with a bounty on your head. And my father, her voice turned vicious. My father is about to swallow everything Moreau ever built and become untouchable. Funny thing about untouchable, Mara said. We touched him last night, looked him right in the eye. Celeste's composure cracked. You're lying. Am I? Ask him about Elena, about his daughter confronting him at Meridian Financial, about how he tried to kill her in front of 100 witnesses. Mara smiled. Bet that's not the version he told you. Rage flickered across Celeste's face. Elena's worthless, a mistake. She means nothing. She meant enough that she's the one who helped us find Vincent. She's the one who gave us access. Your half-sister chose us over your father. Mara's voice hardened. How does that feel? Knowing the family member you dismissed as irrelevant was the one who exposed you? Celeste pulled her weapon, smooth, practiced, deadly. It feels like I'm about to solve a problem. Do it, Mara said. Pull the trigger, kill the unarmed woman in front of 20 federal witnesses. Let's see how you spin that narrative. Celeste's finger tightened on the trigger. For a moment, Mara thought she'd actually do it. Thought rage would override calculation. Then Adrian's voice cut through the tension. I wouldn't. He emerged from the shadows at the warehouse's edge, his own weapon drawn. Marcus appeared from another angle. Elena from a third, her rifle trained on Celeste through a broken window. Celeste's agents swung their weapons toward the new threats. Suddenly, everyone was pointing guns at everyone else. Mexican standoff in the gray dawn light. Lower your weapons, Celeste ordered her people. Why? One of the agents asked. We've got them outnumbered. Because this warehouse is rigged with enough explosives to collapse it on all of us, Marcus said cheerfully. Dead man's switch in my pocket. I die. We all die. So maybe everyone just takes a breath and lowers their weapons before this turns into a cremation instead of an arrest. Nobody lowered their weapons. This is insane, the agent said to Celeste. We need to evacuate and call in reinforcements. We need to finish this, Celeste snapped. She looked at Mara. You wanted a trade. Fine. Where's Danny? Not here. Did you really think I'd bring him into this? Mara laughed, harsh, brittle. He's safe. Far away. Somewhere you'll never find him. But I'll tell you where if you give me something first. What? The truth. On camera. Everything. Vincent's operations, your role in them, the federal agents you've corrupted, all of it. You confess, I tell you where Danny is. Celeste's smile was venom. You think I'm stupid enough to confess to anything? I think you're arrogant enough to believe you can talk your way out of it later. Mara pulled out her phone. And I think you want Danny badly enough to take the risk. So talk. Tell me everything. And I'll give you what you want. For a long moment, Celeste said nothing. Then she started laughing. You really think a confession recorded under duress would hold up anywhere? You really think that's checkmate? No, Mara said. This is checkmate. She pressed a button on her phone. Every screen in the warehouse, Marcus had rigged them during the night, lit up simultaneously. Vincent's face filled them all. Live feed from his location, wherever that was. He was tied to a chair, bloodied, furious, and standing behind him, holding a gun to his head, was Rebecca Torres. Hello, Celeste, Rebecca's voice crackled through the speakers. Nice trap you set. Would have worked too. Except while you were busy surrounding the warehouse, we were busy grabbing your father from his safe house. Turns out when you panic after a public shooting, you make mistakes, like going to ground in a predictable location. Celeste's face went white. Let him go. Not how this works. Here's the new deal. You and your federal friends lower your weapons and walk away. In exchange, your father lives. You try anything, anything at all, and Rebecca puts a bullet in his brain. Mara's voice was ice. Choose fast. I'm getting bored. The agents were looking at Celeste now, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. This wasn't what they'd signed up for. This was a hostage situation involving a civilian on American soil with a former FBI agent holding the gun. Stand down, one of the senior agents said to Celeste. We can't participate in... Shut up, Celeste hissed. Her weapon was still trained on Mara. You're bluffing. Rebecca Torres wouldn't execute a bound prisoner. She's too principled. Maybe she was, Rebecca said through the speakers. But that was before your father had my former partner executed. Before you destroyed good agents' careers. Before you turned the Bureau into your personal hit squad. Her voice hardened. I've got nothing left to lose, Celeste. My career's gone. My reputation's shot. So test me. Pull your trigger and see if I pull mine. Silence. Thick and suffocating. Then Celeste lowered her weapon. Her agents followed suit, confusion and fear evident on their faces. Smart, Mara said. She gestured to the exit. Now leave, all of you. Walk away and forget you were here. We can't just, one agent started. You can and you will, Adrian interrupted, because the alternative is explaining to your superiors how you participated in an operation run by a crime lord's daughter, how you took orders from Celeste Armand knowing she was compromised, how you became accessories to her conspiracy. His smile was cold. Walk away now, and maybe you salvage your careers. Stay, and you go down with her. And the agents exchanged glances. Self-preservation won. They started backing toward the exits, weapons lowered, hands visible. Celeste didn't move. You won't kill him. You need Vincent alive as leverage. Wrong, Mara said. We need him dead. Dead is the only way this ends, the only way Danny's safe, the only way any of us survive. She met Celeste's gaze. Your father's going to die today. The only question is whether you die with him. If he dies, I'll spend the rest of my life hunting you. I'll destroy everyone you've ever loved. I'll make Danny's death last days. Celeste's voice shook with barely controlled rage. You'll never be safe. Never. Do you understand? Yes, Mara said. I understand you'll try. Just like I understand you'll fail. Because you're not invincible, Celeste. You're just a woman trained to be a weapon by a man who valued control over humanity, and weapons break when they're pushed too hard. Celeste's composure shattered. She raised her weapon again. Elena's rifle cracked. The bullet took Celeste in the shoulder, spinning her around. Her weapon clattered to the floor. She dropped, gasping, blood spreading across her black shirt. The remaining agents froze. "Next one's through your skull," Elena's voice came through the speakers. "Leave. Now." They left, running, stumbling over each other in their panic to escape the situation that had spiraled beyond their control. Mara walked over to where Celeste lay, bleeding and furious. "Your father's dying right now. Rebecca just put 2 bullets in him. It's over." Celeste's laugh was wet, pained. "It's never over. Vincent has successors. The Empire doesn't die with one man." "Maybe not, but the Empire dies with you." Mara's voice was hollow. "Because you're the weapon. You're the one who made his vision reality. And when you're gone, there's no one left who can hold it together." She raised her own weapon, the one Adrian had given her, the one she'd learned to use out of necessity rather than choice. "Wait," Celeste gasped. "Wait, Danny. I'll tell you where he is. I'll call off the search. Just let me live." "Danny's already safe. Has been since we moved him the first time. Everything else was misdirection." Mara's finger found the trigger. "You fell for it because you couldn't imagine we'd sacrifice your leverage before securing our own. That's what happens when you only understand transactions. You forget some people operate on principle." "What principle?" Celeste's voice was desperate now. "You're a killer. You murdered Marcus. You kidnapped Elena. You've become exactly what you hated." "Yeah," Mara said quietly. "I have. And I'll spend the rest of my life living with that. But you won't spend another minute destroying lives." "Mara," Adrian's voice cut through the warehouse. "You don't have to do this. We can let the system handle her. Let her rot in prison." "The system doesn't handle people like Celeste. She'll manipulate it, corrupt it, escape it." Mara didn't lower the weapon. "This ends here. With me. No lawyers. No trials. No chances for her to slip away and start over." Celeste was crying now, real tears, raw and terrified. "Please, please, I'll disappear. I'll leave the country. You'll never see me again." "You're right," Mara said. "I won't." She pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse like a final punctuation mark. Celeste's body went still. Blood pooled on the concrete floor. Mara stood there, weapon still raised, her hand steady despite the screaming in her head. She'd done it. She'd crossed the final line. She was a murderer now, not in self-defense, not in the heat of battle. In cold blood, looking into another person's eyes and choosing to end their life. She should have felt something. Horror, maybe. Regret. Satisfaction. She felt nothing. Just empty. Adrian approached slowly, carefully. "Mara." She lowered the weapon. "Is Vincent actually dead?" Rebecca confirmed it 2 minutes ago. 2 shots, center mass. He bled out before paramedics could arrive. "Good." Mara's voice was mechanical. "Then it's over. Vincent's dead, Celeste's dead. The Empire falls. Danny's safe. We won." "Did we?" Adrian looked at Celeste's body. "Or did we just become the next generation of monsters?" Mara finally looked at him. "Does it matter?" Before Adrian could answer, Marcus's voice crackled through their earpieces. "Guys, we've got incoming, multiple vehicles. Federal response is en route. We need to evacuate now." The warehouse that had been their trap was about to become their tomb if they didn't move. "East exit," Adrian ordered. "Elena, you're mobile?" "Yeah." Elena's voice was shaky. She'd killed her half-sister, family, however twisted. "I can move." They ran. Again. Always running. Mara's legs felt like lead, but she forced them to work. Behind them, sirens wailed. Ahead, Marcus had vehicles waiting. They split up, safer that way. Elena went with Marcus. Adrian and Mara took a separate car. They'd regroup later, somewhere safer. If anywhere was safe anymore. Mara stared out the window as they drove, watching the city wake up. People heading to work, living normal lives. Oblivious to the fact that 2 people had just been executed in a warehouse 2 miles away. Oblivious to everything. "Where's Danny?" she asked quietly. "Canada. With Rebecca's sister. He doesn't know any of this happened. As far as he knows, you're still handling a family emergency." "When can I see him?" "When we're sure there's no blowback. When we know Vincent's organization is actually dead and not just wounded." Adrian glanced at her. Could be weeks, could be months. Mara nodded. Weeks or months of waiting, of living with what she'd done, of wondering if she was still capable of being Danny's sister or if she'd become too monstrous to be near him. You did what you had to do, Adrian said, reading her silence. Did I? Or did I just do what was easiest? Killing Celeste felt cleaner than fighting through legal channels that might have failed, safer than trusting a system I know is corrupt. Mara's voice was hollow. Maybe I just chose violence because I'd already crossed so many lines that one more didn't matter. Maybe. Or maybe you recognize that some people can't be redeemed or rehabilitated, that some threats need to be eliminated permanently. Adrian's voice held no judgment. Either way, it's done. We live with it or we don't. Those are the only options. They drove in silence for another mile. Then Mara's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Miss Vance? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. My name is David Park. I'm the special agent in charge of the investigation into Adrian Moreau and your alleged criminal activities. Mara's blood ran cold. How did you get this number? I'm very good at my job, and I need to speak with you urgently without Mr. Moreau present. I know about Celeste Armand. I know about Vincent. I know about the warehouse. Park's voice was steady, calm. And I know you've been played by corrupt elements within my bureau. I'm offering you a chance to come in, to tell the truth, to actually see justice instead of more killing. Why would I trust you? Because unlike Agent Chen, I'm still alive. Because I've spent the last week documenting Celeste's corruption and building a case against the agents she'd compromised. Because I believe you're not the criminal she painted you as. Park paused. You have 12 hours to decide. After that, the warrant for your arrest goes active, and I can't protect you anymore. Think about it. He ended the call. Mara stared at the phone. That was, I heard, Adrian said grimly. It's a trap. Or it's an exit. Mara looked at him. A chance to actually clear my name instead of running forever. You just killed Celeste Armand execution style. There's no clearing that. There's only prison or running. Maybe. Or maybe Park's telling the truth. Maybe there's still a path that doesn't end with me becoming exactly what Celeste said I was. And if you're wrong, if Park's compromised too, then I die. But at least I die trying to be more than a killer. Mara's voice was steady. I can't live like this, Adrian. I can't spend the rest of my life running from the consequences of choices I made because I had no other option. If there's a chance, any chance, that I can stop running and start living again, I have to take it. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. If you go to Park, you're on your own. I can't protect you inside federal custody. I know. And if he's lying, if this is Celeste's backup plan or some other trap, you'll be destroyed. Everything we fought for will be for nothing. I know that too. Mara met his gaze. But I'm going anyway, because the alternative is becoming someone Danny shouldn't be around. Someone I don't want to be. Adrian nodded slowly. Then I'll make sure Danny gets to Canada safely. I'll ensure he has everything he needs. And if this goes sideways, if Park betrays you, I'll make sure Danny knows the truth about who his sister really was. Thank you. Mara's throat was tight. They drove to a neutral location, a parking garage downtown where Park had agreed to meet. Adrian stopped the car 2 levels below the meeting point. Last chance to change your mind, he said. Mara opened the door. I'll see you on the other side. One way or another. She walked up the concrete stairs, her footsteps echoing. 2 levels. Each step felt like approaching an edge she couldn't see beyond. Either this was salvation or it was the final trap. Either Park was legitimate or he was the last piece of Celeste's revenge. She emerged onto the designated level. Park was there. Mid-40s, gray suit, the kind of face that had seen too much and stayed honest anyway. He stood beside a nondescript sedan, hands visible, alone. Miss Vance, he said as she approached. Agent Park. I'm unarmed. I came alone. And I'm offering you something I shouldn't be able to offer, a chance at redemption. He gestured to the sedan. Get in. Let's talk. Let's see if we can find a truth that actually matters. Mara looked at the car, looked at Park, looked back toward where she knew Adrian was waiting. Then she made her choice. She got in the car, and as they drove away from the parking garage, away from Adrian and the life she'd been living, towards something unknown and terrifying and maybe, finally, honest. Mara Vance started to cry, not from fear, not from relief, from the sheer overwhelming weight of everything she'd become and everything she'd lost in the process. But somewhere, in the wreckage of her old life, a tiny spark of hope flickered. Maybe there was still a way back to being human. Maybe. The sedan smelled like government-issue air freshener and broken promises. Mara sat in the passenger seat, her hands folded in her lap, her face wet with tears she didn't bother wiping away. Agent David Park drove in silence for 3 blocks before speaking. "You're making the right choice," he said quietly. "Am I?" Mara's voice was raw. "Because right now it feels like I'm just choosing a different kind of cage. Federal custody isn't a cage if you're telling the truth. It's protection." Park turned onto a side street, heading away from downtown. "I've been investigating Celeste Armand for 8 months. Started when one of my agents flagged inconsistencies in her testimony about Adrian Moreau. The more I dug, the worse it got. Compromised agents, falsified evidence, raids timed to eliminate Vincent's competitors while his operations went untouched. Why didn't you stop her? I tried. Got shut down by people higher up the chain. People I thought I could trust." Park's jaw tightened. "Turns out Vincent's corruption ran deeper than I realized. So I went underground, built my case in secret, documented everything, and then you appeared. The waitress who disrupted their perfect operation. The variable they didn't account for." Mara looked at him. Really looked. Saw the exhaustion in his face, the weight of fighting a war from inside a compromised system. He looked like she felt, hollowed out by choices that left scars. "Celeste's dead," Mara said flatly. "I killed her, about 40 minutes ago. Shot her while she was wounded and begging for her life. That's not self-defense. That's execution." Park's hands tightened on the steering wheel, but he didn't look surprised. "I know. I had surveillance on the warehouse. Saw the whole thing." Mara's blood turned to ice. "You watched me kill her and you're still offering me a deal?" "I watched you end a threat that the justice system couldn't touch. Celeste had diplomatic connections through her father's European operations. Even with all my evidence, she would have walked, delayed the trial for years, intimidated witnesses, manipulated the process." Park's voice was steady, matter of fact. "You did what I couldn't do within the bounds of my oath. And yeah, that makes you a killer. But it also makes you someone who was pushed past every reasonable limit by people who weaponize the system against you. That's not how the law works." "No, it's not." Park pulled into an underground parking garage, not a federal building, somewhere else. "But sometimes the law fails. And when it does, people like you have to make impossible choices. I'm not saying what you did was right. I'm saying I understand why you did it." He parked in a corner spot, killed the engine. They sat in the dim fluorescent light, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like a physical force. "What happens now?" Mara asked. "Now I take you to a safe location. Not federal custody, not yet. Somewhere neutral where you can give me a full statement about everything. Vincent's operations, Celeste's corruption, the agents she compromised, everything you know." Park turned to face her. "In exchange, I offer you immunity on everything except Celeste's death. And for that, I argue extreme circumstances, duress, temporary insanity. We make the case that you were a civilian caught in a war between criminal organizations and corrupted federal agents, that you did what you had to do to survive." "Will it work?" "Maybe. Depends on how good your testimony is. Depends on whether the evidence I've compiled is enough to shift the narrative." Park's expression was grim. "But I won't lie to you, Miss Vance. There's a chance you still end up in prison. A chance the system protects itself instead of pursuing justice. I can't guarantee a happy ending." "Nobody can," Mara said. "Not anymore." They got out of the car. Park led her to a service elevator that descended 2 more levels into what looked like a private bunker. Concrete walls, reinforced door, security systems that probably cost more than Mara's entire life savings. "Safe house," Park explained. "Belonged to a witness in a mob trial 5 years ago. When he went into witness protection, I kept the location off the books, use it for sensitive operations. Inside was Spartan but functional. A conference table, recording equipment, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms. Park gestured to a chair. "Sit. I'll get coffee. This is going to take a while." Mara sat. Her body felt leaden, her mind distant. She was in a government safe house with an FBI agent who'd watched her commit murder and was still offering her a chance at redemption. It felt surreal, like a fever dream where the rules kept changing. Park returned with 2 cups of coffee. Black, bitter, exactly what Mara needed. He set up recording equipment, stated the date and time and participants for the record, then nodded at Mara. Start at the beginning. The night at Vesper House. Everything you saw, everything you heard, every choice you made. Leave nothing out. So Mara talked. She told him about being invisible, about watching Celeste and Adrian for weeks before the operation, noticing the planted diners and repositioned cameras, about overhearing Celeste's phone calls 7 days before the shooting, the chilling confession that tonight was an execution, not a celebration. She told him about the note, 7 words on a napkin that destroyed her life and saved Adrian's, about the gunfight and the escape, about becoming a fugitive in the span of 30 seconds. She told him about Danny, about the terror of knowing her brother was leverage, about the desperation that drove every choice afterward, about agreeing to fight alongside Adrian because running wouldn't save either of them. She told him about the federal agents at Vesper House, how they'd been positioned, how they'd moved, how the whole operation felt choreographed to eliminate Adrian while maintaining Celeste's cover. She named faces she remembered, detailed conversations she'd overheard, provided timestamps and locations from memory sharpened by fear. Park took notes, asked clarifying questions, cross-referenced her testimony against his own evidence. Hours passed. The coffee went cold. Mara's voice turned hoarse, but she kept talking. She told him about Marcus Calabrese, about tracking him, confronting him, shooting him when he tried to kill her, about Adrian executing him in cold blood while Mara watched, about becoming complicit in murder because the alternative was letting Vincent's heir walk free. She told him about Elena, about the failed kidnapping attempt in Paris, about Elena choosing to help them instead, about her confronting Vincent at Meridian Financial and nearly dying for it. She told him about Rebecca Torres, about the former agent who'd been burned by the system and came back to help anyway, about Chen's execution, about all the bodies that piled up because Celeste needed to maintain her narrative. And finally, she told him about the warehouse, about baiting Celeste into a trap, about Rebecca capturing Vincent, about the standoff that ended with 2 bullets, one into Vincent's chest, one into Celeste's skull. I didn't hesitate, Mara said, her voice hollow. When I pulled the trigger, I wasn't scared or angry or conflicted. I just wanted her dead. And when she was, I felt nothing, just empty, like I'd burned out every emotion I had left. Park was quiet for a long moment after she finished. The recording equipment hummed softly. Outside the bunker, the world kept turning, oblivious. You've given me enough to build a case, Park finally said. Names, dates, patterns. Combined with my evidence, this could actually work. We could expose the corruption, clear your name of most charges, and maybe, get you a reduced sentence for Celeste's death. How reduced? 5 years? Maybe less, with good behavior and psychiatric evaluation showing diminished capacity. Park met her gaze. It's not freedom, Miss Vance, but it's not life in prison either, and your brother would be protected. Full witness protection, new identity, financial support until he's an adult. 5 years. Mara would be 30 when she got out. Danny would be 22. He'd have grown up without her, shaped by her absence, probably hating her for the choices she'd made. But he'd be alive, safe, free of Vincent's shadow. Okay, Mara said, what do I need to do? First, you rest. You look like you're about to collapse. Park stood. There's a bedroom through that door. Sleep. Tomorrow we'll start the formal process. Lawyers, statements, building the defense. But tonight, you rest. Mara wanted to argue, wanted to keep moving because stopping meant thinking and thinking meant confronting everything she'd become. But her body was failing, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. She made it to the bedroom, collapsed onto the bed still fully clothed, and fell into darkness. She dreamed of Celeste's eyes, the moment before the bullet hit, the fear and understanding that flashed across her face when she realized Mara would actually do it, the way her body jerked and fell and went still. Mara woke up gasping, her shirt soaked with sweat, her heart hammering. The clock on the nightstand read 3 a.m. She'd slept for 8 hours but felt like she hadn't rested at all. She got up, splashed water on her face in the small bathroom, stared at her reflection. The woman looking back was a stranger, gaunt, haunted, eyes that had seen too much. This was what survival looked like. This was the price of protecting the people you loved. She found Park in the main room, still awake, surrounded by documents and laptop screens. "Can't sleep either?" Mara asked. "Not when I'm this close to breaking a case." Park gestured to his work. "I've been cross-referencing your testimony with financial records, communication intercepts, witness statements. It's fitting together. The corruption runs deeper than I thought. 3 agents definitely compromised, maybe 5. And someone in the district attorney's office was feeding Celeste information about ongoing investigations. How do you prosecute that? How do you convince people the system itself is compromised? Carefully, with irrefutable evidence and witnesses who can't be discredited." Park looked at her. "Which is why I need you alive and credible. Your testimony is the keystone. Without it, this is just paperwork. With it, it's a narrative people can understand." Mara sat across from him. "And if it doesn't work? If they decide protecting the system is more important than exposing the truth, then we've failed. And people like Vincent and Celeste win, even in death. Their corruption becomes the new normal. The precedent that it's easier to hide misconduct than acknowledge it." Park's voice was tired. "But I have to believe that's not how this ends. I have to believe the system can still be salvaged if good people fight hard enough."
"I used to believe that," Mara said quietly. "Before all this, I thought if you worked hard and kept your head down and followed the rules, eventually things would be okay. That justice was real and people got what they deserved. You don't believe that anymore."
"I believe that sometimes justice is a bullet. That sometimes the only way to stop monsters is to become one yourself." Mara looked at her hands. They were steady, no tremors, no visible sign of the blood they'd spilled. "And I believe that the version of me who waited tables and worried about tips died the night I slipped Adrian that note. What's left is someone who can look at herself in the mirror and accept what she's done without flinching." Park was quiet for a moment. Then, "For what it's worth, I don't think you're a monster. I think you're a survivor who got pushed past human limits and did what survivors do, whatever it takes. That doesn't make you evil. It makes you human. Humans aren't supposed to be good at killing. No, but we're very good at adapting, at crossing lines when the alternative is losing everything we love." Park closed his laptop. "The question isn't whether you're a monster, Miss Vance. It's whether you can live with what you've become. Whether you can find a way forward that doesn't require more killing. Whether you can rebuild something from the wreckage." Could she? Mara didn't know. The future felt like a void, shapeless, unknowable, terrifying. But somewhere in that void was Danny, was the possibility of seeing him again, of maybe, eventually, explaining why she'd done what she'd done. That was worth trying for. "What's the next step?" Mara asked. "We bring in your lawyer, someone I trust, someone who's handled high-profile cases involving federal corruption. We build your defense around duress and extreme circumstances. We make the prosecution understand that going after you is politically toxic, that you're the victim of a conspiracy, not a co-conspirator." Park pulled out his phone. "It'll take a few days to set up. In the meantime, you stay here, off the grid, safe." "And Adrian, Marcus, Elena, Rebecca, what happens to them?" "Adrian Moreau's a different problem. His hands are bloody long before you entered the picture. But if he cooperates, if he provides testimony about Vincent's operations and Celeste's conspiracy, we might be able to offer reduced charges." Park's expression was neutral. "As for the others, Elena's a victim, not a perpetrator. Rebecca's actions were vigilante justice, but given her history and Vincent's crimes, I can make a case for extreme circumstances. Marcus the tech guy hasn't killed anyone. He's looking at hacking charges, maybe obstruction, nothing catastrophic." "You've thought this through." "I've been thinking about it since I realized Celeste was dirty. How to dismantle a conspiracy without destroying the innocent people caught in it." Park stood. "Get some more rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense." But Mara didn't sleep. She sat in the dim bunker thinking about everything that had led her here. The choices, the compromises, the lines crossed. She thought about the moment she'd decided to slip Adrian that note instead of staying quiet. How different her life would be if she'd just kept her head down and let events unfold without her interference. Danny would probably be dead. Adrian would be in federal custody or killed in the shooting. Vincent and Celeste would still be operating, destroying lives, corrupting systems. and Mara would still be a waitress, invisible and powerless, watching injustice unfold and pretending not to see. Maybe becoming a killer was the price of mattering. Maybe that's what it took to actually change anything in a world built on violence and power. Or maybe she was just rationalizing murder because the alternative was accepting that she'd become exactly what she'd always feared. The next 3 days blurred together. Park brought in a lawyer, Sandra Chen, no relation to the murdered agent, a woman with steel in her eyes and a reputation for destroying prosecutors who overreached. She listened to Mara's story without judgment, took notes in a leather-bound journal, and asked questions that cut straight to the truth. "The Celeste shooting is the biggest problem," Sandra said on the second day. "Everything else we can argue is self-defense or defense of others. But Celeste was wounded and begging when you pulled the trigger. That's premeditated murder unless we can establish extreme emotional disturbance." "Can you?" Mara asked. "Maybe. You'd been hunted for weeks. Your brother was threatened. You'd witnessed multiple murders. A good psychiatrist could argue you were in a dissociative state, no longer capable of rational decision-making." Sandra's voice was clinical. "But you'd have to sell it. Cry on the stand, show remorse, convince a jury you're broken, not dangerous." "I don't feel broken. I feel empty." "Empty works. We can sell empty as trauma." Sandra made a note. "The key is making you sympathetic. The waitress forced into a war. The sister protecting her brother. The civilian caught between organized crime and federal corruption. We make the jury see you as a victim, not a perpetrator." It felt dishonest, like wearing a mask of the person she used to be instead of acknowledging what she'd become. But Mara understood the game. The truth didn't matter as much as the story. And if playing the broken waitress was what it took to avoid life in prison, she'd play the role. On the fourth day, Park brought news. The district attorneys agreed to meet. They've reviewed the evidence, your testimony, and the corruption allegations. They're willing to discuss a plea arrangement. "What kind of arrangement?" Sandra asked. "Manslaughter for Celeste's death. 5 years, possibility of parole after 3, with good behavior. In exchange, full cooperation on the conspiracy case and testimony against the compromised agents." Park looked at Mara. "It's the best deal you're going to get." "And Danny? Full witness protection, new identity, financial support, placement with a vetted foster family until he's 18. After that, he's on his own, but with resources." Park's expression softened. "He'll be safe, Miss Vance. That was the first thing I secured." Mara closed her eyes. 5 years. 3 with parole. She'd be 28 when she got out. Danny would be 20, a young man instead of the kid she'd left behind. But he'd be alive. "I'll take the deal," Mara said. The guilty plea was entered the following week in a closed courtroom. No media, no spectators. Just Mara, Sandra, the prosecutors, and a judge who looked like she'd seen every possible variation of human failure and had stopped being surprised. Mara stood when asked to, confirmed she understood the charges, admitted her guilt in the death of Celeste Armand. The words felt distant, like someone else was speaking them. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, Mara looked up. "I'm not going to apologize for protecting my brother," she said quietly, "or for stopping people who'd corrupted the justice system and killed innocent witnesses. But I'm sorry that it came to killing, that I became someone capable of pulling a trigger without hesitation. And I'm sorry for everyone who got caught in the crossfire of a war I didn't start but helped finish." The judge studied her for a long moment. 5 years in federal custody, credit for time served starting today. Possibility of parole after 3 years pending psychiatric evaluation and cooperation with ongoing investigations. Court adjourned. The gavel fell. Mara was officially a convict. They transferred her to a federal facility 3 hours outside the city. Medium security, mostly white-collar criminals and nonviolent offenders. Her cell was small but clean. Her cellmate was an embezzler named Rita who talked constantly and asked no questions. The first month was the hardest. Mara went through the motions. Work detail in the prison library, mandatory therapy sessions, meals in the cafeteria where she sat alone. At night, she stared at the ceiling and relived every choice, every death, every moment that had led her here. In therapy, she learned to talk about it. The psychiatrist, Dr. Okafor, a woman with kind eyes and no patience for bullshit, pushed Mara to acknowledge her feelings instead of numbing them. "You're grieving," Dr. Okafor said during their 5th session. "Not for Celeste, but for the person you used to be. The waitress who believed in justice and following rules. That person died, and you haven't let yourself mourn her. Why would I mourn someone weak? Mara asked. Because she was you. Because she had hopes and dreams that didn't involve killing people. Because you lost her, even if becoming someone else was necessary for survival. Dr. Okafor leaned forward. You can acknowledge that loss without dishonoring what you've become. Both versions of you are real. Slowly, painfully, Mara started to process it. Started to understand that she wasn't a monster or a victim, but something more complicated. A person who'd been pushed past her limits and survived by adapting. Someone who'd done terrible things for understandable reasons. Someone who'd have to live with both the actions and the reasons for the rest of her life. 6 months into her sentence, Park visited. He looked better, less exhausted, more like someone who'd won a battle instead of fighting an endless war. The case is wrapping up, he told her across the visitor room table. 4 agents indicted, 2 in the DA's office facing charges. Vincent's organization is fractured. Without him and Celeste, it's collapsing into infighting and arrests. And Adrian Moreau took a plea deal, 10 years, federal witness protection afterward. He's cooperating fully. And the others? Mara asked. Elena's in Europe, under her real name, living quietly. Last I heard, she's teaching art history and trying to forget her family exists. Rebecca Torres was cleared. We ruled her actions as justified defense of a witness under federal protection. She's retired now, consulting on corruption cases. Park smiled slightly. Marcus got 18 months for hacking charges. He'll be out soon. So we won. We survived. And we exposed enough corruption that the system had to acknowledge it and make changes. That's as close to winning as we get in this business. Park's expression turned serious. Danny's doing well. His foster family's good people. He's in school, making friends, adjusting. I showed him edited footage of your testimony, the parts where you explained why you did everything. He understands now. Or he's starting to. Mara's throat tightened. Does he hate me? He's angry, confused, scared. But he doesn't hate you. He asked when he could visit. Park pulled out a piece of paper. I told him not yet, that you needed time to heal, but I promised him that when you were ready, I'd arrange it. So when you're ready, let me know. Mara took the paper. It was a letter from Danny, written in his messy handwriting. I don't understand everything that happened. The FBI guy showed me videos and explained stuff, but it's still crazy. I keep thinking about when you visited me in that apartment and you lied about the gas leak. I was so mad when I found out the truth, but then I saw what you were protecting me from, and I get it now, kind of. I'm safe. They gave me a new name and a new school, and I hate it, but I'm alive. The foster parents are okay. They don't know about you or what really happened. They think my sister died in an accident. I let them think that because the truth is too hard to explain. I don't know when I'll see you again, but I wanted you to know I'm okay. And I don't blame you for the choices you made. I just wish there'd been another way. Love, D. Mara read it 3 times, cried quietly in the visitor room while Park pretended not to notice. When she could speak again, she looked up. Tell him I'll write back. Tell him I'm sorry for everything. And tell him that when I get out, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be someone he can be proud of. I'll tell him, Park promised. The months became a year. Mara found a routine. Worked in the library, attended therapy, started taking correspondence courses in criminal justice because the irony felt right. She wrote to Danny once a week, letters about nothing and everything, carefully edited to avoid the worst details, but honest about her journey toward becoming someone who could live with herself. He wrote back sporadically. Short notes about school and foster life and the weird adjustment of having a new identity. Slowly, the anger in his words faded, replaced by something like understanding, maybe even forgiveness. In therapy, Dr. Okafor pushed Mara to confront the core question she'd been avoiding. Who are you now? The psychiatrist asked during a session in Mara's 18th month. Not who you were, not who you had to be to survive. Who are you choosing to become? Mara thought about it. Someone who sees things, who notices the details other people miss, who understands that sometimes the system fails and people have to make impossible choices, but someone who also understands that violence is a last resort, not a first option. Someone who'd rather prevent another person from becoming like me than punish them for already being there. That sounds like someone who wants to help people, Maybe. Or someone who wants to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else.
Mara met Dr. Okafor's gaze. I can't undo what I've done. Can't bring back the people I killed or erase the choices I made, but I can use what I learned to maybe do something that matters, something that actually helps instead of just surviving. Like what?
Like working with people caught between systems and violence. People who get pushed past their limits and make terrible choices because they don't see alternatives. Mara's voice gained certainty. I understand that perspective now. I've lived it. Maybe that understanding is worth something. Dr. Okafor smiled. I think you just found your path forward. At the 2-year mark, Mara's parole hearing was scheduled. Sandra Chen came to prep her, running through likely questions and coaching her responses. They'll ask about remorse, Sandra explained, whether you've been rehabilitated, whether you're a threat to society if released. What should I say? The truth. That you regret the necessity of violence, but not the protection of your brother, that you've spent 2 years understanding your actions and their consequences, that you want to use your experience to prevent others from being pushed to similar extremes. Sandra's expression was approving. You've done the work, Mara. You've genuinely changed. Let them see that. The parole board consisted of 5 people who looked at Mara like she was a particularly interesting case study. They asked about Celeste's death, about her time in prison, about her plans for reintegration. Mara answered honestly. She didn't cry or perform. She just told them who she'd been, who she'd become, and who she was choosing to be going forward. When they asked if she'd do it again, if she'd kill Celeste again, given the same circumstances, Mara paused. I'd like to say no, that I'd find another way, a better way. But honestly, if my brother's life was on the line and the system had failed us as completely as it did, I'd probably make the same choice, because protecting him mattered more than protecting myself from becoming a killer. Mara met their gazes. But I'd also spend the rest of my life trying to create systems where people don't have to make that choice, where protection doesn't require violence. That's the difference between who I was and who I am now. The board deliberated for 30 minutes. When they called her back in, the chairwoman spoke. Given your cooperation with federal investigations, your clean disciplinary record, and the psychiatric evaluation indicating successful rehabilitation, this board grants parole effective in 30 days. You'll serve 3 years probation with regular check-ins and mandatory continued therapy. Violation of any terms results in immediate return to custody to serve your remaining sentence. Do you understand? Yes, Mara said. Her voice was steady. Thank you. 30 days later, Mara walked out of federal custody into a sunny afternoon that felt surreal. Park was waiting with a car, along with someone Mara hadn't expected. Danny. He was taller, almost 6 feet now, no longer the kid she'd left behind. His face had matured, lost some of its softness. He looked older than 17, but his eyes were the same, wary, intelligent, uncertain. Hey, Mar, he said. Hey. Mara's throat was tight. She wanted to hug him, but didn't know if she had that right anymore. You got tall. You got out. Danny's voice was careful, controlled. They said you were different, that prison changed you. It did. So did everything before prison. Mara took a step closer. I'm sorry, Danny, for all of it. For the lies, the danger, for making choices that put you through hell. If I could go back, don't. Danny's voice cracked. Don't say you'd change it, because if you'd stayed quiet, if you'd been the invisible waitress who didn't interfere, I'd probably be dead. So would you. And those people, Celeste and Vincent, they'd still be destroying lives. You read the case files. Mara could see it in his eyes. Park gave me access when I turned 17, said I had a right to know what really happened. Danny looked at his shoes. It was bad. Worse than I thought. But it also made sense. Why you did what you did. The impossible position you were in. Does knowing make it better or worse? Both. Danny finally looked up. I'm angry you didn't trust me with the truth earlier. I'm scared of what you became. But I'm also grateful I'm alive. And I'm proud that my sister didn't just save herself. She tried to save everyone, even when it cost her everything. The tears came then. Mara couldn't stop them. She closed the distance and pulled Danny into a hug, felt him stiffen and then relax and then hug her back just as fiercely. "I missed you," she whispered. "So much. I missed you too." Danny's voice was muffled against her shoulder. "Even when I was angry, even when I didn't want to, you're still my sister." They stood there for a long moment. Then Park cleared his throat. "We should go. Mara's halfway house has a check-in time." The halfway house was exactly as depressing as expected. Shared rooms, strict rules, constant monitoring, but it was a step toward freedom, toward rebuilding a life that didn't involve looking over her shoulder or planning escapes. Mara got a job at a legal aid clinic. Ironic, given her criminal record, but her experience with federal corruption made her valuable. She helped people navigate systems that had failed them, coached them through bureaucratic nightmares, listened to their stories of being caught between violence and law with the understanding of someone who'd lived it. Danny visited twice a month. Slowly, awkwardly, they rebuilt their relationship. Not as the siblings they'd been, that innocence was gone, but as two people who'd survived trauma and were learning to exist in its aftermath. Danny talked about school, about his foster family, about the weirdness of having a secret past. Mara talked about work, about therapy, about the long, slow process of forgiving herself. 6 months into parole, Mara got a letter. Return address: Lyon, France. Elena's handwriting. "Mara, I don't know if you remember me or if you'd want to hear from me after everything, but I wanted you to know I think about that night often, about how you saved my life when you didn't have to, about how you became exactly what you had to become to stop my father and Celeste. I'm teaching now. Art history, mostly Renaissance. I tell my students about how violence and beauty coexisted in that era, how people created magnificent things while committing atrocities. It reminds me of you, how you did terrible things in service of something good. I don't have wisdom or absolution to offer, just gratitude. You gave me a chance to live free of my family's shadow. I hope you found the same freedom. Elena." Mara read the letter twice, then filed it with Danny's letters in a box she kept under her bed. Evidence that she'd mattered, that the choices she'd made had ripples beyond her own survival. A year into parole, Rebecca Torres contacted her. The former agent had started a consulting firm that worked with victims of federal corruption and organized crime. She needed someone who understood both sides, someone who'd been victimized by the system and survived its darkest corners. "I can't pay much," Rebecca said over coffee in a downtown cafe, "but the work matters. We help people who've been failed by justice find ways forward. Sound familiar?" "Very," Mara said. She took the job, started working cases, people caught in witness protection gone wrong, victims of prosecutorial misconduct, families destroyed by corrupt agents. She used everything she'd learned, every hard truth, every survival tactic. And slowly, she started to feel like she was doing more than just surviving. She was actually helping. 2 years after her release, on a gray afternoon that matched the one when she'd first slipped Adrian that note, Mara got a call from an unknown number. "Miss Vance? It's David Park. I need your help with something." "What kind of something?" "There's a woman. A waitress, actually. She witnessed something she shouldn't have at the restaurant where she works. Now she's being threatened by the people involved, and she doesn't know whether to report it or stay quiet." Park paused. "I thought maybe you could talk to her, help her understand her options, help her avoid becoming what you had to become." Mara's chest tightened. "Send me the details." An hour later, she was sitting across from a young woman in her early 20s, dark hair, nervous eyes, hands that wouldn't stop fidgeting. Her name was Sophie. She worked at an upscale steakhouse in the financial district. She'd overheard a conversation about money laundering and bribes. "I don't know what to do," Sophie said, her voice shaking. "If I report it, these people might come after me. But if I stay quiet, I'm letting them get away with it. And I can't stop seeing the pattern now. I notice everything, all the details that don't add up." Mara recognized herself in Sophie's fear and determination, saw the exact moment she'd been in 5 years ago, standing at a crossroads between silence and action, not knowing that both paths led to transformation. "I can't tell you what to do," Mara said carefully, "but I can tell you what happens if you report it. The attention, the danger, how your life becomes something you don't recognize, how you'll have to make choices you never imagined yourself capable of making." "Did you regret it?" Sophie asked. "Reporting what you saw?" Mara thought about it, really thought, about the deaths, the trauma, the prison time, about becoming a killer and losing years of her life, about Danny growing up scared and angry, about all the prices she'd paid, but also about Vincent and Celeste stopped, about corruption exposed, about Elena living free, about the work she did now, helping people navigate systems that had failed them.
No, Mara said finally. I regret how it happened. The violence, the deaths, all of it. But I don't regret speaking up. Because silence would have cost different lives. And living with that kind of silence, knowing I could have stopped something and chose not to, that would have destroyed me in a different way. So I should report it.
I'm saying you should understand the cost before you pay it. Get a lawyer, document everything, build a support system. Don't go into this alone like I did. Mara pulled out a business card, Rebecca's firm. These people helped me survive what came after. They can help you too. Sophie took the card with trembling hands. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This path is hard. You'll question every choice. You'll become someone you don't recognize, but Mara met her gaze. You'll also become someone who mattered, someone who stood up when it would have been easier to look away. And that has to count for something. Sophie nodded. I'll think about it. She left. Mara sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at her reflection in the window. The woman looking back was different from the waitress who'd slipped a note to a crime lord 5 years ago. Harder, older, marked by choices and consequences, but also stronger, more certain. Someone who'd walked through fire and come out tempered instead of destroyed. Her phone buzzed. Danny's text. Got accepted to State University, criminal justice program. Thought you should know. Apparently fighting corrupt systems runs in the family. Mara smiled. Typed back. Proud of you. But please promise me you'll find a path that doesn't involve killing anyone. Danny's response came quickly. No promises, but I'll try. That night, Mara walked through the city she'd nearly died in multiple times, past the warehouse district where Vesper House used to be before it closed after the shooting, past the federal building where Celeste had given her performance, past the parking garage where she'd gotten into Park's car and chose redemption over running. The city was different now. Or maybe Mara was different and the city just looked different through changed eyes. She ended up at the harbor, watching ships move through dark water under a sky full of stars that didn't care about human violence or survival. She thought about all the versions of herself, the invisible waitress, the fugitive, the killer, the convict, the survivor, all of them real, all of them her. You did it, she whispered to the night. You saved him. You stopped them. You survived. The words felt true, but they also felt incomplete, because surviving wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of figuring out what came next, who to become when survival was no longer the primary goal. Mara pulled out her phone, opened a new document, and started typing. Not a testimony or a confession, just a record. Her story, in her own words, preserved for whenever Danny was ready to understand the full truth, for whenever she needed to remember why she'd made the choices she'd made. She titled it, The Cost of Seeing, and she wrote, My name is Mara Vance. I used to be invisible. Then I chose to be seen, and it destroyed everything I was and created something I'm still learning to understand. This is the story of that transformation, not for absolution or justification, just for the record. So that when people ask what happens when an ordinary person gets caught in an extraordinary war, there's an answer that isn't sanitized or simplified. Here's the truth. You adapt or you die. You cross lines you never imagined crossing. You become someone you don't recognize. And if you're very lucky, you survive long enough to figure out if the person you became is someone worth being. She wrote for hours. The words poured out, every detail, every choice, every death, the truth in all its ugly complexity. By the time the sun started rising over the harbor, painting the water in shades of gold and blood, Mara had written 40 pages. It wasn't finished, probably never would be, but it was honest, and honesty, Mara had learned, was the only foundation worth building on. She saved the document, encrypted it, and sent a copy to Danny with a message. When you're ready to know everything, not the edited version, the real one, I'll be here to answer your questions. Then she stood, stretched, and walked back toward her halfway house. Her probation meeting was in 3 hours. After that, work at the legal aid clinic. After that, dinner with Rebecca to discuss a new case. After that, therapy with Dr. Okafor to continue processing trauma that would probably take a lifetime to fully understand. A full life. Not the life she'd planned. Not the life she'd wanted, but a life that mattered. A life built on choices she'd made, for better and worse. A life where she'd learned the hardest truth there was, that sometimes becoming someone worth being required becoming someone you never wanted to be first. Mara Vance had been invisible once. A waitress floating through other people's stories, never the protagonist of her own. Now she was impossible to ignore. A woman who'd survived a war most people never saw. Who'd killed and been killed in every way except the physical. Who'd lost everything and found something harder and more valuable in its place. Not innocence. That was gone forever. But purpose. Understanding. The kind of strength that came from breaking completely and choosing to reassemble the pieces into something functional, if not beautiful. She was a survivor, a killer, a protector, a cautionary tale, a second chance. All of it true, all of it her. And as the city woke up around her, indifferent and eternal, Mara Vance kept walking forward. Not because the path was clear, not because the destination was certain, but because she'd learned the most important lesson of all, that sometimes survival itself was victory enough, and everything that came after was just learning to live with what survival had cost.